Okay, we'll call to order the regular business meeting of the Board of Education of Community High School District 128 for Monday, November 9th. If I could ask everybody to please recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
Jim Batson,
here.
Don Carmichael,
Here.
Pat Grudy,
Here.
Lisa Hessel,
Here.
Kevin Huber,
Here.
Karen Lundstedt,
Here.
Casey Rooney.
Here.
Okay, all board members are present tonight. On the agenda, we will open it up for public comment. I understand we have about 13 letters to read tonight. Then we'll open it up to our school board representatives, student school board representatives. We'll have a superintendent's report, which will cover a number of items, including school report cards, the status of basketball, updates on capital projects, and where we're at with school reopening. We'll then approve the consent vote agenda, which we reviewed last week, and have updates from program and personnel and facilities and finance. Jim, I assume you were going to talk about IASB tonight?
Yes.
Okay. And then anything from CEDAW, Karen?
No.
Okay. And then we will convene an executive session again this evening. The topic is employment of an employee, 5 ILCS 120/2C1. We will not take any action after that executive session tonight. So we'll just return to open session to adjourn the meeting tonight. All right. Anything else? Okay. Let's open it up for public comment.
Dr. Grudy, can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
In reference. I know we have a lot of public comment things to read in. It looked to me like at least 2 were pretty much word for word identical. Do we have to read both of them, or are we planning to read both of them?
Mary, you want to, is it a form letter with 2 different people?
Yes.
There are 2 that looked very similar.
Is there anything, a lot of times those form letters in the middle, they put their own paragraph in.
I did not see anything different, but I just looked at them quickly.
Yeah.
I was just curious. It was
Yeah, no, that's a fair question, Jim.
Yeah, more out of a curiosity.
They are slightly different. Like you said, they start out similar, and then one has bullet points.
All right, let's read them.
Okay. Okay, the first letter is from Lynn Lenz. Dear board members, I am writing to ask that you vote yes on resolution 2. All of my children attended LHS, and I'm still a concerned community member. Specifically, I'm concerned about preventing the youth gun deaths. The stress our kids are under and the rising incidence of youth suicide and the fact that there has been a huge rise in gun ownership is a scary combination. Unsecured gun info. Before COVID-19, 4.6 million kids lived in a home with a loaded, unlocked gun. Unprecedented surge in gun sales, 500% in FOID applications in Illinois since the spring, means that number is now even higher. 41% of teens in gun-owning homes report having easy access to their parents' gun. Fewer than half the gun owners report storing their guns securely. Suicide info. 1 in 4 teens have contemplated suicide. Suicide is second leading cause of death for teens. 600 children per year die from firearm suicide, and that number has been rising. Youth suicide survivor report spending an average of less than 20 minutes deliberating before they made their attempt. Guns are the most lethal method of suicide, 90% fatality rate with firearm suicide. All other methods of suicide average a 4% fatality rate. Almost half the youth suicides involve a gun. 80% of children who died by firearm suicide used a gun belonging to a family member, most often their parent. Restricting youth gun access can mean the difference between a child surviving a suicide attempt to get the help they need or not surviving the attempt. 90% of people who attempt suicide will never make a second attempt. secure storage of all guns reduces the risk of suicide death by 78%. I know you voted in favor of Resolution 2 last week. Please keep your vote as it stands and have your delegate take that vote to the IASB meeting later this month. Thank you. The next message is from Mary Jane and Andy Wang. Dear board members, we understand the IASB delegate feels that Resolution 2 asks the IASB to step outside their lane in supporting strengthening the state's safe gun storage law. However, a different perspective to consider is that it is in your lane because your school board is subject to many underfunded state mandates that directly relate to this specific issue. We are simply suggesting that you ask those legislators who put those mandates on you to share in that responsibility and meet you halfway by also doing their part to keep kids safe. The data from the U.S. Secret Service analysis of all previous school shootings is clear. The vast majority of active school shootings have been carried out by a student from a school who was under 18. The Secret Service data has also shown that the vast majority of school shooters have had guns belonging to a family member or friend. Logic tells us that helping to prevent unsupervised youth access to firearms in the home would prevent a vast majority of school shootings by halting unsupervised student access to the weapons. But instead of acting accordingly, Springfield has failed to strengthen the safe storage law. Instead, Springfield has put underfunded mandates on you, the school districts, requiring that you spend your budgets hardening your buildings against shooters, running active shooter drills, hiring SROs, and paying for staff training. According to Superintendent Lee, the board has invested over $4 million in security-related upgrades to LHS and VHHS over the past 3 years. If the legislature in Springfield can mandate that school boards use their budget for those things in response to school shootings, then you, as a school district, should expect the state to do their part and meet you halfway by strengthening the law to protect our students in high school. You are also mandated by the state to provide suicide prevention resources. Anne Marie's Law was created to provide suicide awareness and prevention to Illinois school students and school staff. This law requires ISBE to develop a suicide prevention policy and also requires school districts to adopt suicide prevention policies and procedures. Again, the state legislature puts demands on you as a school district to use your financial and staffing resources to address issues like suicide. You as a school board can and should ask them to do their part as well. It is definitely not outside your lane. The obvious and more compelling argument to make here is that strengthening this already existing law will no doubt save students' lives. Nobody wants to be standing around after, God forbid, one of these tragedies happens here, wondering if there was something more we could have done to protect a student or students in our district. Nobody wants to look any child's mother or father in the eye and have to explain to them why you didn't do this when you had the chance. I promise you, your reasons for hesitating now will seem grossly insufficient in that moment. Why do we need to get involved in this? Well, if not you, then who is going to put your students' safety first? The Illinois legislature is motivated in part by big money from the NRA, who will revoke their money, and support from representatives who vote for strengthening the safe storage laws. I've been told this very thing straight from Illinois Senator McConaughey, who told me that he approves of this, but explained that he cannot vote for it without losing his NRA endorsement, which would cost him his voting base. By supporting Resolution 2, you would be joining districts like Libertyville District 70, Mundelein D76, Barrington 220, and Naperville's 203 and 204, who have unanimously voted yes. You have a chance to stand up for our children now, and I hope you take it. Our kids are looking to you to keep them safe. The next letter is from Lisa Black. I am writing once more to urge you to vote for IASB Resolution 2 that raises the safe storage age requirements for firearms from 14 to 18. This resolution could save lives. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for teenagers, 80% of whom die by firearm suicide used a gun belonging to a parent or family member. Safe storage of firearms can also deter school shootings. Data from previous school shootings show most active school shootings were committed by a student from the school, and 80% of the school shooters used guns from their homes or the home of friends or family. Secure firearms storage would prevent the vast majority of school shootings by interrupting a minor's access to a gun in the first place. Kids are impulsive and their brains are not fully developed until closer to age 25. Please do not wait until after a tragedy happens to act to protect our kids. The next message is from Heather Sherwin. School board members, I am writing as a concerned parent with a student in the district to ask that you support IASB Resolution 2. The data regarding both youth suicide deaths and also school shootings clearly indicate that students' lives could be saved by strengthening the existing safe gun storage law. You have an opportunity to stand on the right side of the issue. Our students are looking to you, the adults in a position to protect them, to keep them safe. I hope you will put their safety first by voting to support Resolution 2. This message is from Chuck Greskovich. Board members, I am writing that you vote yes for Resolution 2 because I am a parent in the district and am concerned about the safety of children in our community. Almost 80% of active school shooters have had a connection to the school, and most are students or former students. 80% of active shooters used guns they obtained from their home or their homes of friends or family. Since active shooters are most often current or former students, they have participated in the school's active shooter drill and already know where and how everyone will hide. Kids under 18, age of most of our students, cannot legally purchase firearms. They depend on access to a parent, family member, or friend's guns to carry out their plan. Secure storage would halt a would-be shooter's or school shooter's access to a loaded, unlocked gun, therefore preventing many school shootings from ever happening. Please vote to support Resolution 2 to help keep our kids safer. This message is from Dale Sherman. Board members, it is unclear from the agenda whether there will be a final affirmation tonight of the previous vote to commence a hybrid learning model. Should there be any additional voting or affirmation tonight, I encourage the board to make no changes. We have come so far in this long ordeal, and the hybrid model was a positive step in the right direction. Hybrid is a grand bargain that affords choice to students and parents while also addressing the safety concerns raised by some of our outstanding teachers. It is a short step. We'll be in hybrid for just a few weeks, then adjourn for winter break. But it is a crucial step whose timing cannot be pushed back without adverse consequences. For those who might seek to persuade you to stay remote, I must inquire, what is their plan? What is the specific plan of the remote learning advocates? What timeline do they propose? What specific actions do they recommend? The answer to all is invariably that they have no plans, no specifics, no directions. The proponents of perpetual remote for all status have not met the burden of persuasion. Hybrid is a compromise that at least partially serves the interests of all constituents. No other plan does that. Please do not regress tonight. Please continue to focus on the students and what is best for them. Please stick with the hybrid plan. This message is from Jennifer Rich, School Board. As parents, I think we all envision a future where our children's biggest worry at school is getting an A on a test or a hit in the big game. The goal requires all of us in the community to work toward common sense solutions to gun safety. Schools should not bear an oversized burden of preventing gun violence in their halls and among their students. Yet that is what legislators in Springfield are forcing schools to do by leaving a huge loophole in the state's safe gun storage laws. I am writing today to ask the board to vote yes on IASB Resolution 2. Resolution 2 would commit the IASB to advocate for a stronger gun storage law, one that would require households with children under 18 to lock up their guns safely. Currently, Illinois safe storage legislation applies only to households with children up to age 14, which leaves a huge safety gap that schools are ultimately forced to contend with on their own. Research shows that as many as 74% of school shooters under the age of 18 obtain the weapon from their own home or from homes of a relative. Shutting down minors' access to firearms is a simple and effective way to prevent school gun violence, one that puts the burden on legislators and family, not schools. I, for one, can't wait for the day when we have school board debates about how to make our schools softer rather than harder. Please vote to support Resolution 2, and let's get there together. And this message is from Dr. Kathleen Dorn. I will be brief since I expect you will have many letters today. I'm a concerned D128 parent and community member. My child has chosen to stay remote because they think that is safest. Thank you for that choice. However, as the positivity numbers in the community continue to rise and our hospitals get overwhelmed, I would expect the school board to review and reconsider the safety of opening with an in-person option, not only for the students, but for the faculty and staff as well as the larger community. COVID-19 rates are the highest in Lake County since early July, and she includes some graphs in this letter as well. A return to indoors due to the weather as a whole may only see an increase in cases. While the data in children under 12 is very promising for COVID-19, those in high school age are more like adults. The CDC recently released a study on the incidence and spread in children that showed an increase in risk in the older child. COVID-19 trends among school-age children, United States, March 1 to September 19. A quote from an expert: the new study adds to a body of evidence suggesting that older teenagers in high school and college are more likely to be infected and more likely to transmit the coronavirus than are children under the age of 10, said Dr. Mugsevic, an infectious disease expert at the University of St. Andrews. Thank you for your hard work on this topic and others. I appreciate your consideration in revisiting whether opening in-person classroom teaching will detrimentally affect our community. This message is from Gwen Jansen. Hardworking members of the D128 board. As a community member and a parent of an incoming freshman, I would like to urge you to continue to focus district resources on the most sustainable and responsible course. At this time, with community transmission in our area at extremely concerning and dangerous levels, returning students and staff to any kind of in-person learning should not be the priority. Though data is unclear on the role schools play in community outbreaks and mitigation efforts may prevent some spread, it is clear that all of the necessary mitigation will put a significant strain on our schools. This will affect our schools' ability to meet student needs now and into the future. The remote model is certainly challenging and at times frustrating for teachers, students, and parents alike, but I believe our district would best serve our community's needs by focusing its time and resources on supporting the remote model until local metrics indicate a return to in-person learning is feasible and responsible. Thank you for all of your hard work and dedication as you continue to strive to make the best decisions for our community. This message is from Sarah and Alex Niznik, members of the school board. We are writing today to ask the board to support IASB Resolution 2 for safe gun storage. Currently, Illinois safe gun storage laws apply to children up to age 14, but should be raised to 18. With increasing instances of youth suicide, unintentional firearm shooting in the home, and school shootings, this current legislation falls tragically short in protecting our children in the schools. With more children home than ever before, along with a tremendous increase in firearm sales, we need to make sure minors don't have access to guns. As Resolution 2 states, the majority of school shooters have a connection to the school, and as many as 74% of shooters under the age of 18 obtain their weapon from their home or the home of a relative. Reducing and removing youth access to firearms is a simple and effective way to prevent school violence. I want to address concerns that this resolution calls schools to act outside their lane. That simply isn't true. Schools are responsible for the safety of students when the students are in their buildings. Schools have been pushed into this lane by having to harden their buildings and invest in school resource officers. Schools are in this lane when they were required to perform school shooter drills. Let's be proactive and prevent a shooter from entering the school in the first place by halting access to a firearm. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth between the ages of 10 and 24, and the rates are now at an all-time high. School districts have an important role to play in preventing youth suicide and raising awareness of this issue. Data shows that most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the Illinois chapter of the AAP supports safe gun storage. Please let me know if you would like me to provide you supportive links and letters that demonstrate their viewpoint. Like educators, doctors were told gun violence was not in their lane. Their response has been bold and clear. It is their lane. It is yours as well. Please vote in support of Resolution 2. And this message comes from Deborah Kirk. Board members, I am a Libertyville resident. I have a child who attends a school that feeds into D128. As a member of your community affected by the decisions that are made by you in the midst of a pandemic, I wish to state my displeasure that our schools are making a decision to move forward on hybrid during a time when health experts are warning against it. The CDC says we are at moderate risk of in-school transmission. The LCHD recommends remote. In your own document titled COVID-19 Confirmed Cases and Exposures Reported to Community High School District 128 as of 10/26/2020, you state, District 128 is following guidance from the Illinois Department of Public Health, the Lake County Health Department, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for best practices and procedures to protect everyone's health. And what would prompt District 128 to close LHS and VHS? The Lake County Health Department will work with District 128 administrators to determine if a school should close. This does not seem to be the case. Please heed the advice of the CDC and the LCHD and go remote until LCHD metrics indicate it is safe to pursue hybrid. Please consider your decisions and how they impact the safety of our entire community. This message is from Randall and Leah Roman, Dr. Colentus, Superintendent Prentice, and the board. This is an updated version of a letter I sent to Dr. Colentus on November 4th with more recent numbers. With dismay, we received an email indicating the plan to return to hybrid learning was continuing. Back in October, it was determined that with the increase of both the positivity rate and the 7-day moving average in the district and Lake County, the return to hybrid learning would be delayed from October 29th to November 12th. With now 3 days to go before the anticipated return, the 7-day moving new case average for Lake County is now 44 per 100,000. The values for the 60048 and 60060 zip codes are at 31.9. These figures far exceed the Lake County Health Department recommendation that students work remotely when the new case average exceeds 14 per 100,000. Under these conditions, how is it safe to return to hybrid learning when it was not safe in October when the case average was much lower? We understand you are under a great amount of pressure to return students to school. The public statements read aloud at the October emergency meeting call indicated that there are many members of the public who seem to have no problem risking the health of others because children don't get sick. We believe this is a mistake. Returning students to school at a time when the transmission rate is increasing would be irresponsible. Given the rise in the new case average in the area, plus the cases related to the various sports teams, it is clear that methods to control the spread of COVID among students and the general population are not working. Reopening the schools, even with the decreased attendance of the hybrid model, would put at risk the health of students, their families, and the faculty and staff of the schools. At this point, we urge the school district to delay the return to hybrid learning until the statistics indicate that the spread of COVID has been brought down to a level that the health department considers safe for return to hybrid learning. And the last letter is from Dr. Kristen Cresswell-Isberg. Superintendent Lee, Board of Education, Dr. Colentus, and Dr. Gilliam. Once again, we are on the precipice of opening the schools to in-person learning via a hybrid model. We are also on the precipice with regards to the coronavirus in this country, in this state, and in this county. Metrics don't lie, and infection rates are increasing at an alarming rate. We are currently in the worst position than at any point during this pandemic. Current metrics for our area indicate that we should remain in virtual learning, yet for some reason we are ignoring the metrics and moving full steam ahead. New evidence released this past week by the IDPH show that schools represent the third largest exposure location for SARS-CoV-2 infection in Illinois and sixth in Region 9. Considering that a large portion of schools are currently in virtual learning in our region, I expect our area to mirror state statistics once our school opens. A new study released November 6th on the CDC website concluded the following. These findings suggest the transmission of SARS-CoV-2 within households is high, occurs quickly, and can originate from both children and adults. It has been established that children, even young children, get infected with coronavirus. Illinois IDPH contact tracing data indicates that schools are a significant source of exposure. This new study released by the CDC highlights that children can be the originators of infection within the home or family unit. If we open our doors to in-person learning, when infection rates are higher than what was previously determined to be an acceptable level, we are contributing to the spread of this virus not only in our homes, but throughout our community. The disruption to learning, lives, and health is unacceptable. We are on the precipice and we have a choice. The responsible choice is to continue with virtual learning for now and promote community adherence to mitigation strategies so we can all finally get to the point where positivity rates are low enough that we can safely and responsibly reopen our doors. Thank you.
Okay, that's it, Mary?
Yes.
Hey, Pat, before we go on, we received one letter to be read, but it came in 50 minutes, 50, after the deadline. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention and leave it up to you and the board of whether you actually want that read into the record.
I'm fine with reading it. I mean, I don't want to set a terrible precedent here, but if it's only one, I'm actually okay with reading it.
Okay.
Anybody opposed? Okay. I'd rather err on the side of being inclusive here if we could.
Okay. The last letter is from Rebecca Snyder, who says, members of the board, I am writing today to ask the board to support IASB Resolution 2 for safe gun storage. Currently, Illinois state safe storage law applies to children up to the age of 14, but should be raised to 18. With increasing incidence of youth suicide, unintentional firearm shootings in the home, and school shootings, this current legislation falls tragically short of protecting our children in schools. With more children home than ever before, along with the tremendous increase of firearm sales, we need to make sure that minors do not have access to guns. As Resolution 2 states, the majority of school shooters have a connection to the school, and as many as 74% of the shooters under the age of 18 obtain the weapons from their own home or the home of a relative. Reducing or removing youth access to firearms is simply an effective way to prevent school shootings. I want to address concerns that this resolution calls schools to act outside their lane. That simply is not true. Schools are responsible for the safety of students when the students are in their buildings. Schools have been pushed into this lane by having to harden their buildings and invest in school resource officers. Schools are in this lane when they are required to perform school shooter drills. Let's be proactive and prevent a shooter from entering the school in the first place by halting access to firearms. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth between ages 10 and 24, and the rates are now at an all-time high. School districts have an important role to play in preventing youth suicide and raising awareness of this issue. Data shows us that most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the Illinois chapter of the AAP support safe gun storage. Please let me know if you would like me to provide more supportive links and letters that demonstrate their viewpoint. Like educators, doctors were told gun violence was not in their lane. Their response has been bold and clear. It is now in their lane, and it is yours as well. Please vote to support Resolution 2.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
All righty. Let's see, how about updates from our student school board reps? Who would like to go first?
Kayla, do you want me to go?
Sure, you can go.
Okay. On November 5th, Dr. K, Mr. Stevens, Nurse Strout, and Nurse Wasserman hosted 2 webinars for hybrid kids. The kids attended the webinar based on their assigned group. This webinar was very helpful in understanding how a hybrid day would look like, materials needed, safety precautions, and other important information. Parking for seniors and juniors was also discussed. On Friday, November 6th, Dr. K sent out the hybrid safety video as well as safety contract via email. It's important for hybrid students to watch this video and sign the form acknowledging that they watched the video. I urge all students to watch it as soon as possible. This video provides firsthand insight of a hybrid school day as well as every safety precaution that will be taken. This past Saturday, Model UN had their first virtual conference with approximately 650 students in attendance. The conference was run by St. Ignatius students. The process was a Google form that consisted of a Zoom link for each committee along with the opening and closing ceremonies. Within the committee, they worked together via Zoom and a shared Google Doc to work together on their assigned project. Congrats to Pavan Acharya on winning Best Delegate, Jasmine Lafita on winning Outstanding Delegate, and Emma Black and Fatima El-Manshawi on Honorable Delegate. The month of November is surf season. Student Council is hosting one of the biggest events of the year, the Canned Food Drive. This year, due to COVID, the need for canned foods and non-perishable items have increased. As Wildcats, it is our duty to give back to our own community members. The first Blitz Day was held on November 7th, where Student Council and partnering club members picked up cans from houses who signed up to be a part of the food drive. Within 4 hours, they collected 1,800 cans. There will be another Blitz Day this Saturday. The Google form was sent to all students and parents. Parents are being asked to either leave cans at their doors and LHS kids will pick them up, or can either drop off their cans at the food pantry. The web store is also open for monetary donations that go towards the Libertyville Township. We hope that we can all unite during these unprecedented times as a community and give back to other communities. Seniors, congrats to those of you who had to finish your November 1st college applications. I'm so happy to see all seniors coming together to help each other throughout this whole entire process. A huge shout out to Ms. Belstra and Ms. Cardinale for their hard and valiant efforts and always being there for the seniors. Whether that be on a Zoom call every day or calming down anxious seniors, it meant a lot to all of us. The next big deadline for applications is January 1st, so that will be another round of applications. So perhaps you're wondering how the COVID pandemic is impacting college application process. Many students are applying to more schools due to hesitation about the changing requirements and not being able to tour schools. Many schools have also gone test optional. During the midst of the pandemic, the SAT and ACT were put on pause. after many testing sites filled up rapidly and some even canceled their tests a week before. Because of this, many students were unable to obtain a test score for the college application process. So personally, my October and September SAT were canceled 2 weeks before the day I was supposed to take them. So due to this, I was dependent on the school issued one. Almost all colleges run test optional, where students had the option to submit a test score or not. This is a huge step in the college application process because of how unpopular the SAT and ACT have been throughout the years, as they are not a good representation of the students' abilities. I'm thankful for colleges and being super understanding throughout this whole process. For athletics, the cross-country season is over. The team placed 6th and therefore qualified for state for the first time since 1992. While the top 7 teams in sectionals qualify for state typically, state was not held this year. Fall college signing day is this Wednesday, November 11th. Congratulations to all the athletes on signing to play at the college level. Athletes are allowed to bring immediate family and their head coach to the celebration. Dr. Nelson will be hosting the first Green Dot Bystander Training event of the 2020 to 2021 school year this Wednesday. Green Dot is our LHS program to prevent bullying, harassment, and interpersonal violence. The last Green Dot Bystander Training event was March 11th, the very last District 128 field trip before we headed to e-learning last spring. I'm so excited to see this initiative continue so that many more people can experience and be able to learn so many amazing things about our Green Dot program.
Who would like to go next?
Kayla?
I will go. Okay. Red Ribbon Week. Red Ribbon Week was a week dedicated to drug prevention at BHHS. Each day last week had a specific theme. Monday was Hat Day for Put a Cap on Drugs. Tuesday had no school due to the election. And Wednesday was Wear a College Shirt Day to focus on your future. And Thursday was Thoughtful Thursday, which focused on how you can make someone's day. And lastly, Friday was Wear Red. Red Ribbon Week led up to the D128 Red Ribbon Virtual 5K Run/Walk. Its motto was Together. We walk towards a healthier future. Students, staff, and families were able to register for the social distance event. Prizes and gift cards will be handed out to those who participated. Participants were also able to order red shirts. The Prevention and Wellness Coordinator, Ms. Dillon, used social media to share the images of the people who participated in the weekend. Senior EJ Davis stated that he went on a walk with his parents and his dog. He enjoyed supporting a great cause. Academics. Congratulations to the following BHHS seniors who are named National Hispanic Recognition Program scholars: Alec Cornando Gillen, Matthew Kagan, Owen Laser, Thomas Rose, and Aiden Trackman. The National Hispanic Recognition Program recognizes approximately 5,000 students who identify as Hispanic or Latinx from among the more than 400,000 juniors who take the PSAT. The NRHP uses the junior year PSAT or NNSQT as their qualifying test. The Academic Resource Center continues to be a vital component of e-learning. Many students have utilized their study halls or lunch.
I think we lost her, Pat.
Kayla. There she is.
We lost you there, Kayla.
Yeah, Kayla.
We lost the last one that you did.
I will go back. Sorry, my bad.
Okay.
The Academic Resource Center continues to be a vital component of e-learning. Many students have utilized their study halls or lunch periods to receive extra help from student peers to teachers. The ARC will be open during hybrid learning. Tutors and teachers can be found there before school, during school, and after school. Quick shout out to our College Resource Center staff, Ms. Fuentes, Ms. Rolick, and Ms. Polito. On behalf of the senior class, thank you for helping us make our November 1st deadlines, being readily available to answer our questions and push out helpful information. Fine arts. This fall, AP Drawing and Painting students practice portraiture by creating paintings and drawings of children for the memory project. This week, AP Portfolio BHS junior Jasmine Paulson has completed and mailed her original painting from a child from Venezuela, putting her passion and artistic skills towards an excellent cause during remote learning. The AP portfolio classes attended a virtual field trip for a presentation about what art schools have to offer students in a BFA setting. The Illinois representative of the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design presented a virtual campus tour, detailed the majors and minors offered, shared alumni achievements and careers, and covered opportunities for portfolio reviews, development courses, and pre-college credit opportunities. Lastly, Senior J.D. Gillard said it was interesting to hear about how the school interacted with the city and its community. I was intrigued with the available studio space at the Institute was used by undergraduate students because the Institute has no graduate students. She continued to describe MIAD as a nice small art school. And that concludes the BHS Student Board Report. Thank you for listening.
Okay, next, superintendent's report.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome to everybody that's watching, participating in the Zoom online, and to all of you who are here. We have some additional good news briefly. The following VHHS seniors were named National Hispanic Recognition Program Scholars: Alec Coronado Gillen, Matthew Kagan, Owen Lazar, Thomas Rose, and Aiden Trachtman. The National Hispanic Recognition Program recognizes approximately 5,000 students who identify as Hispanic or Latinx from among the more than 400,000 juniors who take the PSAT. The NHRP uses the junior year PSAT NMSQT as its qualifying test. So congratulations to those students. 2, the LHS mathematics team participated in the second North Suburban Mathematics League Conference Competition of the Year on November 2nd. Perfect papers were written by juniors Olivia Duffy and Nikhil Patel on the topic of polynomials. This was the second perfect paper in a row written by Nikhil. And lastly, last weekend, 20 students, LHS students, participated in a Zoom Model UN conference hosted by St. Ignatius College Prep. Students received the following honors: Fatma Elman Shawi, honorable mention, UNESCO, Oman; Emma Bleck, honorable mention; Jasmine Lafita, outstanding delegate; and Pavan Archara, best delegate. So congratulations to all those students. Next up is just a review from brief discussion and presentation that we had at PNP meeting on the 2002 Illinois school report cards, and I'll turn it over to Rita.
Thank you, Prentice. As you mentioned, the Brian, can you give me the opportunity to share my screen?
You should be able to share it now.
Okay.
There it is. It was on the top, Rita.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, sorry. As you mentioned, Prentice, the Illinois School Report Card was posted last Friday, October 30th. The report card this year was slightly different from previous years due to the COVID pandemic. It prompted the Department of Education to waive federally required assessments, summative designations, and many of the reporting requirements. And for that reason, the state of Illinois continued the 2019 designations over to the 2020 report card. So while the 2020 report card was released, the summative designation of exemplary was continued from 2019 for Libertyville High School and Vernon Hills High School. And that designation means that our two high schools have no subgroup that is performing at or below the level of the all students in the lowest 5% of schools in the state of Illinois, that both schools have a graduation rate of greater than 67%, and as a result of academic indicators of performances in the top 10% of the state. So while some of the reporting measures were not collected, the designation of exemplary continues. We also discussed at the committee meeting the 2019 May AP scores and reporting on AP scores in the district. We've used the year 2006 as a benchmark in the past to show the percent of students participating in AP exams and the number of exams administered. And we've seen that the number of AP students, which is defined by the College Board as students enrolled in at least one AP course or taking one AP exam, that number has has almost tripled since 2006, while the number of exams we've administered in District 128 has more than tripled since 2006. So we are seeing an ever increasing number of students enter the AP program, and we're administering an increasing number of exams over time. The concern for last spring, given the pandemic and the sudden shift of the College Board in the format of the exam administration, as well as the content of the exams, would result in some altered numbers for the district. And as you can see, that really did not occur. Our passing percentage, which is generally referred to as the number of exams earning 3s, 4s, or 5s, has remained stable over all the years that we've been tracking this and reporting on it, which generally the kind of common myth is that if you increase the number of students participating in the program, that the percent of students earning those 3s, 4s, and 5s would decline. That has not been the case for our district. In fact, we've rapidly increased the program and maintained that stable passing percentage, especially when you look at exams that have earned the score of 4 or 5. That has been 60% in each of the years that's reported on this chart. Given the concerns last year with what would happen with AP exam administration, with students having to shift rapidly to a new format and to altered content, we had students who persisted, who participated in the exam, and teachers who prepared them well to succeed. We really didn't see a noticeable shift in the number of students passing and in the number of students participating and in the passing percentages that they earned on the AP exam. So we're grateful to all of our D128 educators who prepare students so well for this challenging and rigorous curriculum, and for our students for their persistence during a time of a pandemic to maintain our excellent participation and success on these AP exams.
One of our many terrific success stories over a long period of time in this district. We're very, very proud of everyone and very proud of our students as well for their outstanding work. Okay, thanks, Rita. Okay, next on the superintendent's agenda is certification and authorization of performance recognition incentive. Turn it over to Bryant here, but just one comment for 2 or 3 contracts now with the teachers union. We have had a performance incentive in place. There are several categories and a base line data mark that's established through the process. And if teachers reach a number of those markers, then there is a performance incentive that's over and above their typical salary, or their base salary. Does not add to their base for the following year, and it has to be earned every year. And then the board typically extends that to administrators and support staff under the auspices in our district that everybody contributes to the success of our students. We kind of live that every day in the district. So Bryant, if you want to do quick highlights there.
Sure, I'll just I'll share the data that we shared at the PMP committee looking at our data that we have. So the first one is our percentage of students that take at least one AP class annually. So looking at that data, our minimum qualifying standard 59%, and this year we are at 73.9%. Percentage of graduating class students meeting the College Board readiness benchmarks in both math and evidence-based reading and writing on the school day SAT. Minimum qualifying standard was 70%, and we were at 74%. The percentage of students that participate in at least one student activity, fine arts, or extracurricular athletic program, our minimum qualifying standard is 80%. And with our, between both schools, a total of 83.3%. And then looking at teachers participating in one professional learning activity for no compensation earned, and we had all of our teachers participate in at least one professional learning activity. And due to, this past year, as Rita alluded to, the percentage of students meeting the ISB college and career ready indicators, we weren't able to start working on that data due to this past school year. So that's where we are with the data. And I think Prentice had this as, we have this listed as a action item.
Yes, that's accurate, Brian. Even though this is in the contract, so if the teachers meet the criteria, they will receive the bonus. Again, we extend that to the administrators and the support staff. So I would ask for a motion to authorize payment of the performance recognition incentive for teachers and support staff and administrators.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Any other discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Sorry about that. Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Grudy,
Aye.
Hessel,
Aye.
Huber,
Aye.
Lundstedt,
Aye.
Rooney.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next on the superintendent's report tonight is boys and girls basketball status. And we just wanted to touch base on this again at the broader board meeting. We had discussion about this at the program and personnel committee meeting. So we just wanted to be aware of what the status is in our district and what we think the status is in the area and perhaps the state moving forward. Very quickly as review, about a week ago, the governor and IDPH indicated that basketball would be moved to a high-risk category, boys and girls basketball, along with some other things. And as a result, that would require the sport to be moved to the spring. The IHSA the next day, I believe it was the next day, the IHSA board, which is made up of principals across the state, made a decision to counteract that decision by the governor and IDPH and indicate that basketball would be going ahead during the winter season. Great concern on a number of fronts with this, and I've expressed that concern before, so I won't go into that. Also expressed that concern in the letter that we put out to the basketball community here. But in short, that decision places local school districts directly in opposition to the governor and IDPH's guidance for winter athletics. And that's very problematic because we have followed that guidance closely going back to March last year. And that's a pretty towering place to, kind of plant your flag in the ground and try and have a fight. But it leaves the school districts in the middle of trying to navigate that. Second piece that the community may not always be aware of, but all school districts in the state started the school year with no COVID-19 liability insurance because pandemics are not covered under the group insurance policies in which districts have their tort and immunity protection. But there is, because we are a public body, there is a higher standard to meet to actually prevail in a libel case, in a liability case. And so if you don't follow the guidance of your governing agencies, in our case, that would be the governor, IDPH and ISBE, the Illinois State Board of Education, you lose that higher threshold of protection. And although the risk may be relatively low for somebody to file and somebody to continue with litigation to get there, it still places districts in a precarious position. And three, there is season jeopardy here that we're concerned about. The season jeopardy would be this: perhaps a few districts in an area decide that they're going to go ahead and play basketball in the winter. And then in the spring, when the governor has said the season is going to happen, all the schools are going to play basketball. It's highly unlikely that there is going to be a decision to allow schools to play 2 seasons, if you will, of basketball in a year. So it is fraught with a number of issues. Most of the school districts, at least in the North Suburban Conference, Central Suburban League schools are kind of going through processes with their boards right now, will not be going against, so to speak, the governor and IDPH, and will defer to that spring season. So we just wanted to say again that to all the basketball players, we're very sorry that you're caught in the middle of this. As a former athlete and longtime coach myself, I can relate to the excitement of an upcoming season, but I do think it's important for us and other districts to make that distinction so the student athletes can prepare themselves physically and mentally for the season to come in the spring, and they're not hung out waiting in the balance here. So we just wanted to share that that was a recommendation to the board, and the board confirmed or affirmed that. Didn't vote on it, didn't need to vote on it, but at the last meeting.
Yeah, hey Prentice, thanks for putting the item on the agenda, and actually thanks for walking through the steps, because again, I think we talk a lot about liability, and I think you said it pretty eloquently there. Because that's really what the governor came out and really did frame the liability question, and you have to look out for the assets of the district. That's one of your responsibilities, but you kind of did say that the liability maybe not that well, the burden of proof may be high, i.e. somebody would have to get COVID, which is possible. Then they'd have to prove, well, first off, they'd have to have a horrible reaction to it, which is remote. Then they'd have to prove that it was from a basketball game, which is remote. And then they'd have to prove that we didn't take prudent, reasonable standards, which again, we would take. So that's remote. So you're the math guy, but what possible times remote, times remote, times remote, meaning there is liability for sure, but that wasn't the big issue. I think one of the big issues, and you hit that on the head, is there's just not going to be people to play. I mean, that's a huge issue. And so at the end of the day, I think I appreciate you walking through those facts. And again, it's unfortunate that adults couldn't act like it. Not only have we let the kids down since last March, we continue to let the kids down. Not we, Springfield, and now IHSA. So thanks for putting it on the agenda. I appreciate it. I just feel awful for the kids, the basketball kids. I feel awful for the football kids. I feel awful for the wrestlers. I feel awful for everybody. But at the end of the day, the one last question I need to ask, and I asked this at the committee meeting, did basketball change? Did the game of basketball change to go from medium to high? And the answer we all know, we know the answer to that, right? It didn't. So that just kind of tells us that there's these arbitrary decisions getting made, and it's a shame that it's hurting the kids. So again, thanks for putting it on the agenda. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Kevin. Okay, capital projects update. Dan and Mark, or Mark and Dan? Who wants to go first, gentlemen?
I can go first. At Vernon Hills, our capital projects are moving along. In our classroom edition, we are working on the punch list items. Our landscaping is completing on the outside around the classroom edition. The Science classrooms, there's some gas valves to complete. We're waiting some parts. Those should be completed tomorrow. And the STEM lab casework is en route. It's been shipped, as well as the few fume hoods that we have. So we will be able to use the nine new spaces on Thursday. We will be able to use 8 of them when the kids come back. In the cafeteria, in the faculty office edition, we're working on punch list items there. Gym and dance studio, area C. In the dance studio, we're painted in that area. Cubbies were installed. We're waiting for the flooring to be installed. In the main gym, they're working on getting the plywood base down for the gym floor. So that's moving forward. On the outside, we've got most of the exterior completed. They're working on the concrete and landscaping, as well as the parking lot reconfiguration over in outside the gym. On the Vernon Hills softball infield project, they did final grading and seeding around the site today. So the fences has been restored. Asphalt is in, batting cage posts are in, fence around the area is completed. So just some punch list items to complete on that project. That concludes my report.
Thanks,
Okay,
Mark.
any other questions?
Yeah, have they finished the water main work that they were doing in the front of LHS?
Yes, the water main work has completed. And so right now they are drafting the easement agreement for us.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thanks. Okay, we're going to move to school reopening. And
sorry, I have one more thing on the Capitol.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Sorry, a little timely. So I had just gotten what I think are the final change orders for the LHS pool, and I think we're going to be under at the end of the day. So I literally just got them this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to kind of tabulate them and review them and everything, but I think we'll be under. So I'll have an update for you at our next committee meeting. So this is great news, I think. Yeah.
Dan, that's great news on a $21.5 million project, and given where we were probably 4 or 5 months ago, made a lot of progress on that. Thank you, and thank you to Gilbane for working with us on that. It's good all the way around. Good news. Okay, we'll look forward to the updates as we go through committee meetings in December. Okay, next on the agenda is school reopening. And again, we have several filters that we go through, and perhaps the most important one on that list is metrics. Again, we're very fortunate that our board president has a very strong science research background and has really been looking at data and metrics locally in the area at large, at the state level, at the national level, and the international level, and research to help guide our decision making. So Pat, I will turn it over to you at this point, and let's see where the conversation takes us.
All right, Brian, you going to share the presentation there? Okay, so we will start with the Lake County Schools dashboard. And I'm going to make one comment before I start. This dashboard has been and continues to be way behind. There are 2 slides, one on incidence, one on positivity rate. The incidence rate is relatively caught up. It's current up until 11:07. That's as of 5:30 tonight. And it's the other one, the positivity rate, that really hasn't been updated. I think its last point was October 27th. Okay, and that's real important to understand because things, frankly, keep trending in the wrong direction. And I can tell you, based on data that I got really from the Daily Herald website, that the positivity rates have continued to increase from the 27th. All right. So in any event, the Libertyville incidence rate has continued to increase over the last week. And it's, solidly in the remote region based on the Lake County Department of Health metrics. So frankly, that's no it's not. I don't want to say it's not a change since the last time we met, because it is a change in that it's significantly higher than it was last time we met. It's not a change in the sense that it was remote and it's still remote. Okay, next slide. Likewise on positivity, I mean, you can see from really about the middle of October, there's been a steady increase in the positivity rate. As of the 27th, that positivity rate was at 7.33%. And from the guidelines, anything below 5% is considered a moderate risk of transmission. Anything above 8% is considered a substantial risk of transmission. All right, so back on the 27th, Libertyville was just hovering just under the really the threshold from moderate to substantial risk. And I can tell you that since then, at least the data that I've been able to get access to is suggesting that they'll go considerably above that number. And that's in a later presentation. I'll also add that, if I really looked at the incidence rates for Libertyville, and again, these are calculations based on the data from the Daily Herald website, so the numbers may not exactly tie to the Lake County, but the trend is the same. From September to October, the numbers, the average case rate per day doubled. All right, so it doubled from about 2.4 to 4.8. All right, again, plus or minus a little bit on the numbers, but in any event, the cases doubled. And then relative to September, the month-to-date November numbers are running about 7 times higher than what they were running in September, or about 3.5 times higher than what they were running in October. All right, so certainly in terms of numbers of cases, we're seeing substantially more cases than we saw both in September and October. Likewise, on the positivity rate in Libertyville, up until late last week, we were really seeing numbers that were, bordering on the 6% range. And I'm honestly forecasting based on that Daily Herald data that since this data was published, we're going to see numbers upwards of over 10%. So we're going to see a significant increase, I believe, in the next week here in the Libertyville positivity data once they report that, if that data mirrors what the Daily Herald has been posting. For some reason, the Daily Herald's able to post data every day, and they've been showing numbers that lead to positivity rates in excess of 10% for the last week. Okay, next slide. In the case of Vernon Hills, you see a similar trend. Again, the incidence rate is trending pretty solidly in the remote zone. Again, that data is current up until the 7th. Likewise, the cases in Vernon Hills were just under 2 through the month of September. They averaged about 5 in the month of October. So they were up almost threefold, actually, and from September to October. Probably running about 12 cases a day, month to date in November. So that 12.2 is up over 6-fold from September and about 2.5-fold from October. So again, similar trend in Vernon Hills, a significant increase in the incidence rates in Vernon Hills as well as Libertyville. Next slide. Okay, I believe this positivity data is wrong. And that actually should be 13.19%. I don't see anything in the cases that would lead to positivity numbers quite this high. So that's only my own opinion. I've had no way to verify that. I don't know how these numbers are checked by Lake County, but just looking at the case numbers, I don't see anything that justifies that very steep increase to 13.9%. Having said that, I believe after they report next week's results, they'll be probably on the order of 10%, fairly similar to Libertyville. Up until last week, I would have projected that it would have been much closer to 6%. So where they're showing numbers over 10%, I would have thought it would have been closer to 6%. So I can't explain the disconnect. I don't know if it's the way I'm calculating it or the way they're calculating it. But I really haven't seen anything that suggests that number should be 13.19%. All right. In any event, I believe the numbers are trending in both towns to be above the substantial risk zone. Okay, next slide. On the other presentation, can you bring the other presentation up, Brian? Okay, so this is similar to the data that I presented last time. Yeah, perfect. And it's certainly hard for me to read. And I'm going to start with the region data. All right, remember, Region 9 includes Lake County and McHenry County. Then I've got a little bit of a deeper dive into the county and then back into the 2 towns. So you see here, what's notable here from the end of October until through the first week in November, the Region 9 positivity rate increased from 9.1% to 12.7%. And it's been a very steady increase, very steady and consistent increase. We'll come back to this one. Okay. And then down below really just kind of charts that positivity increase, which reflects the numbers in the tables. You're also seeing, along with the increase in positivity rate, you're seeing a, I would say, slight increase in the hospital admission rates, and I showed that in a little more detail on the right-hand side. If you look at the availability of hospital beds, just basically, your basic hospital bed and your ICU beds, you can see both. The region is still reasonably solid in the green range, but week over week, and again, this data is a week old. They haven't caught up yet. You are seeing a decline in the availability of both regular med-surg beds as well as ICU beds. All right, so this is going to be a trend that I think we'll want to watch, and I'm sure the health professionals are watching very carefully. Next slide. Okay, again, I tried to show here the week over week change, and again, this data is only up until the end of October. All right, so we're missing about a week and a half in November, but back in at the end of 10/24, October 24th, the new cases per 100,000 population in Lake County was 170 per 100,000. Okay, and that was officially declared as a warning label or warning level. In the following week, that number has increased to 284. And again, based on the data I've seen in the Daily Herald website, I would forecast this number will continue to increase. Testing's up slightly, which I guess is good news. The positivity rate's up quite a bit from 7% to 9.3%. You're seeing an increase in the CLI is COVID-like illness visits to the ED. I didn't have the hospital admissions from the week before. I simply didn't cut it out. And then also you're seeing an increase in deaths, primarily in older people though. Okay, so I mean the trend in deaths I think continues to be the same. As we've said, as others have said, younger people are getting sick, but their illnesses tend not to be quite as serious. All right, but we are seeing again increases in cases, increases in testing, increases in positivity rates, increases in ED, as well as regular hospital admission visits. All right, you can see actually at least in 1031, the hospital admissions triggered a warning, indicating some level of concern there. Next slide. This just shows you the difference between Lake County and McHenry County. All right, so it is true that McHenry County is skewing the Region 9 data, frankly, quite a bit. But if you go to if you actually look at the IDPH metrics and when they get into what they call substantial risk of COVID transmission, that cutoff is a positivity rate of 8%. So whether you're in Lake County or McHenry County, really for the last roughly 2 weeks, Lake County and McHenry County have both been over that 8%. McHenry County, obviously, way over the number. Lake County still over, but less so. Next slide. Okay, and then I tried to actually just show a graph. These are Libertyville and Vernon Hills data. And again, I'm going to qualify this as, I'm going to call it unofficial data from the data off the Daily Herald website. And the calculation is you look at the number of positive cases over the last 7 days, and you divide that by the total number of tests reported over the last 7 days. Obviously, multiply that by 100, that gives you a percentage. And so again, you see about a week ago, we were running right about in the middle or up and down in the moderate risk range. But in the last week, we've flipped quite quite far into the substantial risk range. And this is what I'm forecasting that we'll probably see on the Lake County page once they update it, assuming their calculations are correct. The only way this data could be wrong is if the number of cases being reported in that Daily Herald website were incorrect. The calculation's pretty straightforward. But it certainly indicates that in both Libertyville and Vernon Hills right now, we're averaging 10 plus or minus % positivity, which is solidly in the substantial risk category. Next slide. All right, so it was mentioned in at least one of the letters that last week, IDPH and state of Illinois obviously finally have published some data on where outbreaks are coming from. They previously hadn't said that. And I know the headline was that schools were one of the top places where there were outbreaks occurring across the state. All right, so this is really a pie chart that's on their webpage that actually shows schools, in this case, one of the top, I believe they called it the second case, but certainly one of the top 4 locations where outbreaks have occurred. Now, I believe, but I'm not positive of this, the prior definition of an outbreak was when there were 2 cases, and I believe they just changed that to 5.
Right.
So I think that would have some impact on that data. I watched the governor's press conference today. They really didn't have a great explanation on why they changed from 5 to 2. But I think if you replotted this with the outbreaks being 5 cases or more, it would probably look a little different. But in any event, this was the headline. Schools are a significant source of outbreaks, according to this data. The next page, I believe, shows the detail there. Again, this is a bit of an eye chart. I apologize. It's just hard to get it all on one page, but this shows you all the detail of basically the data underneath each one of those slices of the pie. What is important is if you see where the red arrows are, those are the outbreaks across the state by different regions attributable to schools. Hang on one second. Attributable to schools. And so there have been 27 outbreaks across the state attributable to schools. Of those, 4 of those are in Region 9, which is our region. And I believe 3 of those are in McHenry County. Okay. I know more than half of them, or at least I believe more than half of them are in McHenry County, but that gives you some sense of, number one, how many outbreaks are occurring in public schools, and number 2, by region, ours being Region 9, how many are occurring in our region. And this data goes back to July, okay? There's one more slide coming up that actually shows the data in the last 30 days. Next slide. All right, so this is the number of outbreaks in the last 30 days. In this case, here schools were the number 1 cause, second only by community events and churches. Then on the next slide, this just shows the detail. Now here in the last 30 days, there have been 6 total outbreaks classified as public schools across the state. Of those, 2 were in Region 9. And honestly, I forget where they were, McHenry County or Lake County, but 2 of the 6 are honestly 30%, 33% of the outbreaks in schools were in our region, okay?
Pat, can I just ask a quick question? Do we have any idea whether those are actually schools that are meeting with students and teachers in the schools in some form of, I mean, because, like if we're one of the school districts that's being cited, we haven't even
Yeah, Karen, that's a good
begun
question.
meeting.
I don't have that detail, and I honestly can't speak to whether or not those outbreaks occurred in classrooms or whether or not they occurred as a result of, say, sporting activities at the school. I haven't looked into that level of detail in that data. That's a good question. I will look and see if I can find that. And if I can find it, I'll send it to you guys. Okay, next slide. If there is another, yeah, I thought that was it. Okay, so that's kind of the metrics as we know. And bottom line is things are definitely trending in the wrong direction. And at this point, it is very difficult to forecast whether or when that may change. It's certainly not showing any indication of slowing down at this point. If anything, things are continuing to accelerate. Okay. And frankly, that's consistent with some conversations I've had with some healthcare providers and hospitals who are basically telling me the same thing. They're starting to see a significant increase in number of people showing up at the hospitals in the emergency rooms as these cases and positivity rates increase. Okay, any other questions on that? Sobering. All right. I think given that, I would ask the question, where do we stand on opening? I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts on that right now. I mean, I'll go first. I mean, honestly, up until even Friday night, I was very solidly in the position of wanting to move ahead to open the schools. I really feel I feel we're ready. You know, even at a 6% positivity rate, I was very confident that we could actually do this. But now if I'm looking at something between 10 and 11%, I believe that's much closer to uncharted territory. I think the outbreak data that I've shown there from the state, you know, we have to keep in mind that was outbreak data when positivity rates and case incident rates were significantly lower than what they are and how they're trending. So honestly, as I looked at it over the weekend and continued to see the numbers coming in for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, my level of anxiety increased, to be completely transparent.
Pat, I'll chime in a few comments. First of all, the idea that we're looking at 7 or 14-day rolling averages is a little concerning because we see, you know, pretty high numbers, but that's a reflection of a 7-day rolling average, not a reflection of actually what's happening right now. And I know why we do that and to kind of smooth things out, but I'm concerned, like many people, that the numbers are not going to get better. They're only going to go up. We've had some very fortunate luck with our weather lately. We've been able to remain outside. We've been able to do a lot of things as a community, as a, you know, in our area, to be able to remain outside. That's not going to be the case. And in the coming weeks, we're going to have a lot of people coming inside, which will only escalate the complications, not only with the virus, but with hospitalizations and other issues, health issues coming up with people being inside. And then you combine that with the fact that we're just a couple weeks away from the Thanksgiving holiday. And as much as we'd like to think we're all going to social distance and nobody's going to meet up and no families are going to gather and nobody's going to anyone's house, we're going to have a substantial number of people that'll be gathering with people who they haven't gathered with in a while. We're going to have college students coming home from college. So we're going to have a situation where a lot of mixing and mingling of people over that week, followed by then an incubation period and then another few weeks before yet another holiday break. So I guess my point is I'm very concerned about us thinking that it's wise to start bringing people back in the building this week. I think we're going to end up in a situation where we're going to have far more restrictions placed on us pretty soon, making that an unwise choice. So I have concerns with that. I have concerns with that over a relatively short period, but I also have concerns over, you know, the intermingling of people over the next few weeks. Many colleges have chosen to, if they were in person, they send the kids home at Thanksgiving break and they say, okay, the rest of the semester is remote because we don't want to have a lot of people coming and going and intermingling. So I guess my personal opinion is I have concern about trying to bring large groups of students in anytime before the first of the year, anytime before the end of this semester.
Okay. Hey, Jim, and I can respond to the one issue. I also do calculate the daily positivity rates in addition to the 7-day rolling averages. And again, these are, I'll call them my calculations off that Daily Herald data. At LHS over roughly the last week, those have gone anywhere from a low of about 3% to a high over 30%. Likewise, in Vernon Hills, the low was around 2.5%, and the high was around 20%. So day by day, there's big swings, just depending on the number of tests done and the number of cases. So you're right, we do try to smooth that out. It's a little easier to see the trends when the sawtooth isn't as big as it would be if you did the daily thing. But in any event, the trend is clear whether you're looking at daily or the 7-day moving average. It's going.
And I'll just add one more thing. I have a concern with the positivity rate being so high, because you would think if you're doing a lot more testing, which we are, the more testing, that positivity rate, if all else is equal, the positivity rate should start to go down, because you're just testing a lot more people. If you're testing, the more people you test, you're going to conceivably test more non-infected people. But it seems like the more we're doing far more testing, yet our positivity rate's going up, which is reflected in the number of cases. So it's just not a good trend. I just don't see, us bringing the students in that quickly.
All right. Other thoughts?
I echo what Jim said, and I don't think that I can improve on anything that he said. I think that it's going to be difficult for us to justify going against the Lake County Health Department's recommendation in the short term. And I think that as we continue to see these cases increasing, as the trends are indicating, that it does not make sense to bring students and faculty and staff back into the building. I also echo that I don't see that happens before the first of the year.
Okay. Casey, Lisa, Kevin, Karen, too.
Yeah, Pat, first of all, I just am so appreciative to you for all the time you're spending and in your professional capacity in the sciences and doing your analysis to this level is just really welcomed. And I really appreciate it. With lots of conflicting or confusing information out there, you've really helped to make it something that we can understand and discern. With that said, I see nothing other than it's trending in dangerous levels. It's trending in a place where it would be irresponsible to bring more people back into a building. I know that we as a group have tried to take measured steps to bring us back. I know we all want to bring us back, but we've all said all along, we're going to keep watching the data. We're going to keep analyzing the data. That's what we're doing. We're seeing that the data is showing that we're in dangerous territory here. And I think it would be irresponsible for us to, this week, with this kind of numbers, bring the students back into the building.
Okay.
I agree with Karen and somewhat Jim as well. Don't want to say the same thing 4 different times, but I want to take the chance to thank Pat for all the work that you do and all the communication that you've given us. It's very sobering to see those numbers. The good news is we've done the work to get the schools ready. We can pivot when we need to. Yep. When the numbers look better, and I have faith that things will trend better at some point, we're ready to go. We've done the work. We know what the process is going to look like, and we can get the kids back in the building as soon as the numbers look better. But right now, it's just at a level that makes me really uncomfortable.
Okay. Anybody else? Lisa, anybody want to add anything?
Want to add my thanks for your continuing data analysis. I have also been frustrated as I look at the Lake County Data Hub. They've been excellent up until October 27th, when the zip code results sort of just stopped. And I was very hopeful, especially looking at the 60048 and 60061 numbers, that aberration that we saw in Vernon Hills of 13.18% on a 7-day rolling positivity, which had spiked the 3 days prior that they posted data, would drastically come down. But what we've seen, you mentioned Saturday, it was 20% higher than Friday, which was the all-time record. And by this weekend, we had broke the record of number of new cases 6 out of 10 days. The data is trending in the wrong direction. And because of the holiday that's coming up, I won't repeat everything that Kevin said, but that Jim said. Sorry, Kevin. I won't repeat everything that Jim said. I know your head just exploded. I apologize. That was a mistake. My brain with names. I won't repeat everything that Jim said other than to agree with it. And I think it would be irresponsible for us with the case rate exploding around us. You know, everybody that comes home from Thanksgiving, every family member that gets together is from every community outside of ours. Cook County, McHenry County, Kenosha County, Wisconsin, Indiana, Iowa, every state around us is exploding. And it would be highly irresponsible for us just to plow ahead. We are ready. We've done the work. And once the numbers drop, we can pivot. So.
All right. Kevin, I think you're the only one that hasn't spoken. Do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, thanks. This stinks. But
I think all of us would concur on that for sure.
Yeah, no,
to me, this is a big disappointment.
Yeah, no,
It's only gotten worse.
Yeah, but we do know the local numbers. Nobody can dispute they've risen dramatically. I don't know. I still struggle though how other countries whose numbers have risen more dramatically than our little local numbers, they haven't yanked their kids out. The one thing they haven't done, they've shut businesses, they've shut restaurants, they've done everything. You know what they haven't done though? They haven't yanked their kids out of school. It's just a fact.
They might have a percentage positivity increase, but they don't have the number of cases that the United States does.
Germany has plenty of cases. Their positivity is extremely high. Merkel chose not to. But again, this isn't about the metrics. I struggle with that. That's all I'm wanting to voice, that other countries haven't. I also struggle with, we have a governor. Do you not think if schools were a health risk, he wouldn't shut them down? Because he would. He would. He shut the restaurants down. He shut indoor dining down.
Although he hasn't shut down the casinos.
He hasn't shut down the casinos.
So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, there is evidence of various political, I don't want to say agenda. It might be too strong a word, but
But if the data that we just presented on schools was so overwhelming, the governor, I would hope our governor would certainly shut down schools and say, go to remote. He hasn't, right? So again, leads me cause for concern. And I guess the biggest issue, and this is the one that I always harp on, so you'll just have to bear with me, is, and now I've actually witnessed it firsthand. That's again to my kids and their little friend bubbles. These emotional concerns are real, but let's just face it, these are real. So while I know rising cases would most likely lead to infections, what's the impact of these emotional concerns on the future generation? I mean, we will never know, but I know I have 2 kids in my house. I know that some friends in their little bubbles, I'm seeing it. And as a parent, I have that perspective. So I can feel that emotional need that's not getting met. And Tom and John did something that's great, and it often gets overlooked. And they set these schools up to ironically be a safer environment than the kids at home. You don't believe me?
I do believe that, Kevin.
Yeah. So are we not considering making a bad decision by keeping the kids at home? Now we're increasing risk. Yeah. You know what? They're going out to lunches without masks on in confined cars. I mean, they're getting together. People have seen pictures. Why are they doing that? I don't know, but it could be that emotional need. So again, I struggle and I apologize. I know I'm going to be the minority on this one, but I just can't get over the hump. If not now, when? The metrics are not going to get better. We can always find a reason not to do something, but sometimes you need to find a reason to want to do something. Yeah. There's a thing, the old coaches and Prentice knows this. There's a can and there's a want. I know you can do it, but do you want to do it? And I still think we need to go, but again, that's just me. So I apologize.
So Kevin, and I'll speak for myself. I mean, I was historically of the opinion that we really wanted to keep the positivity numbers around 5% in order to go back. And I've honestly moved. I at this point would be comfortable if we were closer to 8%. I was basing that on what the experience is in school districts that have gone back and that they're not seeing major super spreader events. I do think one of the things we've got to strategize and figure out what to do is how we can push back a little bit on the Lake County public health people, because I don't see us getting below 5% in the near future. And I hope I'm wrong on that, but I don't think we can wait that long to get back. I really don't. So, I mean, you know, like I'm saying tonight, I'm not comfortable going back when we're at 10 or 11%, but I think we got to figure out a number that's below that somewhere where we are comfortable going back. And I don't believe it's 5%. So I don't know.
And Pat, I would agree. And in fact, I think I would feel comfortable going back if the trends were actually going the other direction.
Well, I agree, Jim.
For a period of time, even if they were high.
Yep.
If they were headed in the right direction, that's a different story. But right now they're headed in very steeply in the wrong direction, and that's the concern. As we get there, and the data comes out next Friday, and all of a sudden we're, you know, it's really rough.
Well, and that's a good point. That's why I want to caution everybody. I don't think we should lock into a number and say once we're above or below, we're not or we are, because I think we need more flexibility than that. I think we need to consider a broader body of evidence than that. So that's why I've honestly been avoiding picking a number that says, all right, anything above this number, we're not. Anything below this number, we are. And Jim, I agree with your point. I think it's the trajectory of these numbers that are most concerning, because I just don't have any idea when they're going to plateau. And I don't think it's in the next week or so.
Well, and
I really appreciate Kevin's comments about, you know, the social and emotional needs of the kids is hugely important to all of us, to the parents. Is there more, while we're in these spots, is there more we can be doing? Is there suggestions from any other districts or from our social workers that we can be helping to support this ongoing just drudgery of what our kids and our families and we are going through? I don't know the answer. I'm sure all the people that are the professionals in this are working hard at that. I just wonder, can we be proactive about doing something while we continue to measure the physiological safety of the virus? I don't know what the answer is, but
I love that question, Karen.
No, it's a great question, Karen.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would even add the twist that, and Kevin, you brought this up, and I think it's a very astute observation, is that social need is now manifesting itself in kids, especially older kids that can be home by themselves and their parents are off to work or, you know, busy doing their work somewhere, and they're getting together for lunch. They're finding each other at the park, and how we can address not only that social need, but really, and I don't want to say, you know, raise the awareness of the value of not doing that, of trying to find a different way to socialize rather than physically getting together, because I think that's a key element too. We got to make sure that we're addressing that need as well.
I got a letter from a parent recently about a safety issue with her son, saying that school would be safer because there's another set of eyes. He has a particular health issue, and by having him in school, there would be more eyes watching him. But if he's isolated at home, he's actually in a more dangerous position, and that rang deep and true. I think that the emotional aspect or the physical aspect where it's actually harmful for the kids to be out of school is definitely something that we have to address. I don't know how we address it with the numbers where they are, but that's why I like Karen's position that, you know, is there something else that we can be doing? And maybe I cut you off there, Prentice.
No, Don, I think actually we could have segued our two comments together. I think as we look at these things, we always want to talk about what's the current state. So at some point, if it's not tonight, I'd want Tom and John to talk a little bit more about what we are doing, because we're serving an amazing number of kids for not being in school right now. So it's always important to know what that current state is. One, it's good knowledge for you to have as board members. And I know we've talked about that a little bit, but you know, when we're focused on that a little bit more, And we can talk about what we have done, we are doing, what we perhaps can continue to do, even with the rising numbers. And I think you'll be surprised by the amount of opportunities that students have to connect, outside what would be the traditional school day. But we're always open to, asking that question, what more could we do? And we certainly know we have your support to do that. So that's never a delimiter for us. I mean, we would never start and say, oh, the board wouldn't let it. You all have worked with me long enough that, we push the envelope. And so we would say, okay, here's what we want to do. Now let me go get the board on, talk to the board and make sure that, we have their support to do that. So just so you know, we know that from you, and we know that door is always open for us to look at some other things and then come and talk to you about what we'd like to do. Right. So perhaps maybe even in December, we can have John and Tom talk a little bit more about the things we're doing wherever we're at that particular point. Might be really helpful, I think.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I mean, at this point, I don't see a need to take a vote, especially because we don't really have this down for a vote on the agenda. Sounds to me like the consensus is pretty clear. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hey, I would love to hear Prentice, John, Tom, Rita, Bryant. Could you weigh in quickly with your thoughts?
Well, everybody else can, as you know, I always empower my team to speak for themselves, but I'm going to give you probably a consensus recommendation based on your conversation tonight. And this may have to go through a couple of filters because a couple of you talked about like going through the end of the semester, right? And so that'll be different what I'm going to talk to you about here and put on the table. And Pat is right. You're not required to vote on this. You could have, and we didn't want to do that. And I didn't want you to do this, but back in the day, you could have said, this is your task. You take care of this, you do this, you make decisions. So you're not required to vote on this. But what Pat is doing is he's polling you tonight. And it has the same effect as a vote because you'll be on record in the minutes, not voting, but just what your opinion is on the recommendation. And we've done that a number of times, but I verified that with council just to make sure we were cool with that, right? So our consensus recommendation based on your conversation, not surprisingly, our conversation has been a parallel conversation. And I want to emphasize a few things that you have all said. One, that we have collectively, board, administration, teams, Tom and John, their teams at the buildings, work diligently to get the schools ready for the students to come back. And we're ready. When we're ready to make that decision, we're as ready as we can be. And we know when we get kids in real time, whenever that is, that every day we're going to tweak that model. Once we live it, kind of day by day, there'll be things we're going to tweak the first day and say, yep, we need to do this a little differently. We need to change this. We need to amplify what we're doing here. And every day we'll get better at that. And we'll be as good as anybody in the country in terms of providing a safe environment for the kids to come into and the teachers to practice their passion and profession in working with kids in terms of teaching. So just to say that up front. So we're all on the same page. This is not about any of the board members, any of the administrators, the teachers, the support staff, or even the students not wanting to come back to school. It's not about that. But given your conversation and our looking at the same data, my many conversations with Pat on this over the last few days, our consensus recommendation at this point would be to pause, and that's what we would call it, a pause until after Thanksgiving, which would be Monday, November 30th. And so what the calendar would look like would be this. On Monday and Tuesday, so Monday, November 30th, and Tuesday, December 1st, would be teacher professional learning days. So in other words, work all the technology, get ready to have the kids back in, right? And so that's what we would look like those first 2 days. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of that week, the students would return. So that's the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th, right? So we go to our blue and orange days, or orange and blues days. I always forget which is first in the morning on the first day. And then the following week, which is the week of the 7th. Okay, so 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That week, the kids are all in school that week. That Wednesday will not be a teacher-directed day. It will be a regular day of school. So over 2 weeks, we're able to balance the number of blue and orange days over that 2-week period. So the same amount of days for, blue and orange moving forward. And that's, what that would look like. Now, there's a very important component here. If we're to do this, if you make a decision tonight, or as Pat told you, if you decide to, let's say affirm that recommendation, or if we tweak that recommendation, but we're not going to start on the 12th and we're going to go to plan B, then we're going to do a hard pivot tomorrow morning to remote learning. Okay, so we're going to go right back to remote, right? So because we'll be off, if we're not starting on Thursday, then we want to get back to learning. And so that pivot would be tomorrow morning, we'll start in remote learning. And after we make some kind of decision tonight, then I'll ask Mary and Rita to peel off a little bit, because we've got several layers of communication that we'll have to do with teachers and staff and students, so they know what's going on tomorrow and what the next, let's say, couple of weeks will look like. So that would be our recommendation. And I understand that several people have mentioned, well, perhaps we do this to the end of the first semester. And my suggestion to you would be, take the recommendation that I've made on behalf of us, kind of assess that. And then if you want to tweak the end date, we can, like the restart date from the 30th to that, then that could be a second kind of recommendation, if you will. That way you kind of give play to this part of the conversation. And if you want to change some of those dates, then we can have that conversation. So that would be the consensus recommendation that we would make at this point. And you can certainly make merit. I think the concerning thing for everyone is just this kind of quantum leap of data, over the last, really even since we met last week, but probably the last 10 days, where it is really arced. Because when we met last Monday, the data was arcing, but it looked like it might come back down a little bit. And then it just kept going up and going up and going up. And that is very concerning. And I'll finish, this little set of remarks where I started. And that is, we can't wait to get the kids back in the school. We're ready to get the kids back in school. But the data and the data trending right now it's pretty scary.
Prentice, can I ask just a clarifying
Yes.
question with the dates that you are recommending?
Yes, Lisa.
We don't meet again, either in committee or as a board, until November 7th. So December
Sure.
7th, which would actually be the second week in the plan that you discussed.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what you envision in terms of communication with the board?
Well, I think we would need to be together again. I mean, that's not a memo communication. I think we probably need to have a special board meeting or an emergency meeting just to come back together and let Pat collect some more data, to look at that, to talk about it again. If we did the week of the 30th, okay, is that still the date? What does the data look like? So that's a real good point, Lisa. We'd want to sometime between now and probably at least a week before that, even if we met on a Thursday, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Monday. But with me working with all of you, we can pick a date out, and then we can come back and look at some data points. And then Pat would do what he's been doing almost daily with us during this. He would keep sharing, the incremental data with us as we get to that point. And that next decision may be very obvious. Okay, this is the time to try, or it may be, okay, we have to extend this further. When I say we, meaning you, with us in the administration. Does that help, Lisa, a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at my calendar. I mean, the best case, we'd look probably sometime early in the week of the 23rd, which is Thanksgiving week, and just see, right? I mean, and I think we would have to see at least a decreasing trend in the metrics, maybe regardless of the number. If that makes any sense.
Or we could even meet on the 30th, Pat. I mean, I guess,
Yeah. I mean,
coming back.
You know, we may have a quick checkpoint before Thanksgiving. I mean, honestly, I want to try to get us out of this mode of on Monday we changed our mind for an impact on what was planned for Tuesday, because in addition to being very disappointing, this whole thing, it's incredibly disruptive as well to teachers, to students, to parents, to everybody. Not to mention bus drivers and everything else we got going. So
I agree, Pat.
Somehow we got to get ahead of this thing.
And my guess is that the data that's going to be coming in over Thanksgiving is going to be light. I mean, so to wait till the 30th, I would just, seems like it seems like we want to wait a while because hopefully these trends is going to start going down, but it seems like
it gives us almost 2 full weeks. So,
seems like right before Thanksgiving is.
Yeah. So let's see. I mean, let's just see what happens to the data. I mean, it's got to hit an inflection point here and start coming down, because my fear is, I mean, if I knew it was going to stay where it's at, it'd be one thing. My fear is it's not going to do that.
Yeah, and I agree with your comment, Pat. I feel like we're kicking the can down the road where we set a date and then we changed our minds, and we set another date and we changed our minds. We're going to set another date. As long as we have an opportunity to review the data, at least at like the Monday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable going into this. I agree. I think we can't make a decision the day before again, because it is disruptive. It's disruptive to a lot of both students and staff and our parents and everything else. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of lesson planning that goes in. So if we're going to change on a dime, it's hard to write a lesson at the last minute. So teachers that thought that they were going to be in training tomorrow, if they're going to be teaching tomorrow, they have to have a lesson ready for tomorrow, and it's already late.
Yeah.
Well, I acknowledge, Don, you're right. I mean, the teachers, you guys have to, the emotional devastation that was just caused, I don't think you understand with the kids. As I was going over my board meeting materials this afternoon, my daughter asked me the truth. And I told her the truth. I said, I suspect you're probably not going to be going back. And her exact comment to me, the stoic one of my family, was, Dad, you do not understand what this is going to do to the kids. Okay, that's from a guy who has a kid there. So we better stop this flip-flopping. I mean, we can't continue to be, because the data was good enough to go before. And when we did the pause, did 2 weeks, the data was bad, but it was good enough to go. I mean, so at the end of the day, we cannot keep flip-flopping, because I talked about the emotional toll. Now we're no better than the governor and IHSA. We're creating this emotional toll.
Yeah, but
now,
Kevin,
while I respect
Kevin,
the issue on the teachers,
go ahead.
Pat, let me finish.
While I finish, because I don't want to get accused of cutting you off. So go ahead.
Because I have the kids. I have the kids in the district. I have the immediate feedback I'm giving you. What you do with it is as a board, that's what we do. But we cannot say, well, we're going to look at it in 2 weeks. We're going to look at it. Come on. We know the data, and Jim pointed out earlier with going indoors and things like that. We know the data is not going to get that much better. And that comes down to the can and the want. And when everybody else, and again, the other countries are going, the other states are going, let's just, if we're not going to go, let's tell the community and the kids, hey, we're not going to go until next semester. But to say, hey, we're going to look at it again and this, that, and that. If anybody on this call thinks the data is really going to get that much better, again, I show me why, because I don't see it. Again,
Carmel has decided to do pause for 2 weeks after Thanksgiving too. they're going to stay remote for 2 weeks after Thanksgiving because of the concern with college kids coming home and people traveling. They're kind of using that as a time to let everybody stay at home, keep the germs to themselves, kind of thing. I am concerned about the emotional toll on kids. I know we all are. We all are concerned about that. And I do think it's harder, especially with that age group, to give them a carrot, then take it away. Give them a carrot, take it away. It breaks my heart, but I almost think we're better off saying, all right, we've only got 3 weeks. Is it 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and the Christmas holiday, including 1 week of finals, which, you know, you got to handle that differently too. It breaks my heart to say it, but I'm more in favor of saying, let's just keep it remote and keep it consistent for the kids, even though it's not necessarily what they all want by any stretch of the imagination. At least it's a consistent message. And my experience, while I don't have kids in the school, I did for a long time, and a consistent message with teenagers is probably your best bet.
Yeah, I'm going to have to jump in and agree with Kevin and Casey about that. I also have a sophomore in the district. So I do very well understand this age group, and this is not what any of us want. And I think the initial, and I don't want to speak for you, Prentice, but I think the initial push to kick it 2 weeks forward is just to hold out the possibility that if the numbers support it, we could bring the kids back, because for the kids that want it, we want to give that to them. But I don't see how, with people coming home for Thanksgiving from colleges, with people getting together with family for Thanksgiving, how these exploding numbers are going to magically go down. And if we agree that it's more detrimental, not only to the students' social emotional health, but to the teachers in planning a quality education, then perhaps we do need to just make the call now that this is going to be an adaptive pause through the end of the semester. I think it's a good idea. I think we should discuss that further. And I do want to say, though, that it isn't the school board that's making the numbers explode. We are trying to react and adapt and make decisions based on the latest data. I wish we could control the exploding numbers, but we can't. And the reason for us changing our minds is not to toy with the emotions of anybody in the community, but to try to adapt to the reality.
And to be, you know, at least this is the way I've interpreted it, that we've, at least in terms of how I understand it and what I've been agreeing to do, it's been, we are going to wait. We're going to look at the numbers. We all know that if the numbers go way up, we're not going to be able to take the kids back. I mean, it is really hard to wait. It's really hard to not know, but we're all watching it together. Everybody at home, everybody on the board, all the teachers. And so maybe it's better to just say, well, you know what? We don't know what the numbers are going to do. We think, you know, our guess is as good as anyone else's based on the science. We're trying not to guess. We're trying to conjecture in an intelligent way. But if it's causing so much distress to be watching and waiting, like, you know, just think of the last week when we've had to wait to know who's going to be president. It's very stressful. Maybe it is better to, I mean, I don't know. I feel like we've been in good faith trying to give hope that, yes, we are hopeful that the numbers are going to go down and not increase. Therefore, we want to plan to go back. But that's not what's happened. And if that's going to put undue stress the other way, then maybe it is better to wait. I mean, I'm not sure that's exactly what you were saying, though, Kevin. So.
But you know what? I mean, we could sit here and say, we're not gonna put a date in, and we're gonna just plan to be closed for the rest of this semester. In my opinion, that then sets an expectation and a hope that we will open up coming out of going into next semester. And you know what? Right now, we don't know that any more than we know we're going to open up in the first week of December. So I just don't know that it helps. And to me, that just gives it another kind of false hope. I think to Karen's point, we're doing what we're doing, which is disruptive, but we're trying to actually find a way to make this happen. And let me just put some other numbers. Jim actually just forwarded me another website just to put in perspective. It's a Northwestern website. They're confirming the positivity rate combined Libertyville, Vernon Hills through today, 10.81%, fairly consistent with the numbers I showed you guys. But here's a number that kind of blows me away. The number of new cases, that's the 7-day number of new cases per 100,000 population, is 427.6. IDPH defines substantial risk as anything greater than 100. Okay, so we're currently at a rate, so we can debate the metric whether 100 is a good number, a bigger than 100 number is, but we're almost 4.5 times over what the best health experts in our state are saying is a substantial risk of outbreaks from COVID. So,
Hey, Pat, did you say Northwestern Hospital? Just so that we can.
I mean, I just looked at the webpage. It's an nd.edu. I think it's Northwestern.
Northwestern University?
But it looks like a great website. I'll send it to you guys. Again,
do we need to make that public?
We certainly can. I mean, I'll make sure the minutes reflect what I just quoted. But again, Kevin, I emphasize with you. I get to emotionally for all of us, this is hard. It's probably not nearly as hard as it is for the kids, and I get that because I don't know about you guys. I'm COVID exhausted too. Okay, and I'm pushing hard. I want to push hard. I want to get our kids back. Okay, and so I think all of our efforts are still directed towards. We need to get our kids back. I'm very concerned about some of our underperforming kids. I'm very concerned about some of our kids that are even taking AP classes that I know are struggling. Okay. I am very, very concerned about that in addition to the emotional and social aspects of it. But, we're looking at, I'll admit it's a relatively small number of outbreaks in schools when the transmission rates were low. And these are now upwards of 5 times, anywhere from 3 to 5 times greater than that. And again, we're back into the experiment stage. We don't know what's going to happen with these kinds of transmission rates. And at least from anything I've read until recently, maybe, I mean, even in Europe, the transmission rates historically have been lower. We'll see what happens in Germany now. Maybe maybe they've got it.
Hey, Pat, we do have a couple students here, so maybe.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Amal what she.
Yeah, maybe it'd be prudent if we ask Amal and Kayla.
I only see Amal.
Yeah, Kayla's up there. She's up there.
Okay. Oh, there she is. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
great.
she's on the top of my screen, maybe not yours.
So I'd love to have you guys weigh in.
Amal, why don't you go first?
If I'm being completely honest, I'm so conflicted with both sides because obviously what Mr. Huber was saying, the emotional toll of it being like we were set on going back Thursday and then that being like, okay, well, that's done. But also looking at the data and looking at the trends, I think that it's like the question is it safe? Because it's not about the students who are going to survive it. It's not about the students who aren't going to have symptoms. It's about the vulnerable teachers and the vulnerable students. And it's also about the kids who, it's also about like the responsibility of the students I don't think they're willing to, they're not ready to have the responsibility of tightening up their groups, keeping it socially distanced, and kind of aligning their words with their actions. And I mean, I feel like we all want to go back so bad because obviously, like for me and Kayla, it's like our senior year. But I feel like do senior year events trump safety? It just doesn't. And I like Mr. Huber, I know what you're saying with like it being like we have a set date for Thursday. Like we like mentally prepared it. Teachers have tomorrow and after tomorrow as an asynchronous day. So the disruption is real. But I don't know. I just see both sides and it's really conflicting within me. Be like, as a teen, I want to go back. As a high school kid, I want to go back and I want to like experience the things that I'm supposed to experience. But we go back and we're not allowed to gather around the hallways. We're not allowed to talk with we're not allowed to like even like Dr. K sees it during passing periods. Like there are groups in the hallways, like you see your friends, that's where you see your friends. And we're not allowed to do that. So doesn't it make kids feel more lonely? Because when you're online, you know where your friends are, you know that you can easily contact them. But when you're in person, you can barely even talk to them. So that's just it. And then also like the other side of safety, but then like there's just two sides to it that I'm conflicted about that. I don't know. It's hard for me to give an opinion. Like as a board rep, as someone who's been looking at the data, I don't think it's safe. But as a teen and on behalf of all high schoolers, people want to go back. And everyone wants to go back. That's universal. But I don't know. I can't say like, I just don't think I'm qualified enough to say something that would put me like, I don't know, Kayla, go ahead.
You're qualified.
I think your comments indicate you're quite qualified because everything you just said, I think any one of us could certainly echo, especially on the conflicted part.
Yes.
So I think your comments were very well spoken.
Kayla.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I want to go back so badly, and I want to go to school, but I have a high risk mother, and because of that, that makes me not do things that I would normally want to do. Like, I want to go back to school, but I can't go back to school because of my mom. And so I totally get what you're saying. Like, my social emotional health isn't great right now. I would love to see my friends in school, but the cases are going up. And if you're just ignoring the scientists and information, that's ridiculous. Like, you cannot ignore that. You cannot ignore safety protocols for your social emotional health, because what's more important? That's my opinion. I know this can get political or anything like that, and I don't want it to, but for the safety of our community, we cannot go back yet.
Okay, good job, Kayla. Let me reassure you.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I was just gonna say that, shoot, it literally slipped from my mind.
All right, well, hang in there. It'll come back.
Oh, I got it. I was just gonna say that, like I understand, like, that I've been going in person for Monday for student council, and we've been working hard, and I've seen the school and I've seen the preparations of the school, and I obviously really, like, I've seen, like, the hallways split in half. I've seen, like, those socially distant signs, and I've seen all that. I walked it with Dr. K. Like, it's so different, and it's like, it's just like, it's scary because there's so many complications of this whole thing that it could be like the social emotional complication where I can see my friends struggling, and I can see them wanting to go back, and I can see them wanting their friends. And then there's the safety complication of COVID, but there's just so much that's just so scary about this whole thing that I think we can all agree on is COVID just needs to get wiped out. But that's all.
Hey, can I ask you guys a quick question? So as we've been discussing whether it's better to like do the, let's plan on going back, hopefully going back right after Thanksgiving versus let's just call it for the semester. Weigh in on that if you wouldn't mind. I know we're asking a lot of you, but I just would be interested to hear your opinions on that. Would you rather kind of have that carrot that's hopeful that says we're ready as soon as the numbers drop, let's get back in there? Or would you rather say, you know what, let's just know what we've got? And I'm just wondering what you think about that.
I think disruption is huge, especially for teachers when there's disruption of like the 3 async. So today was a teacher directed day, and teachers were under the presumption that tomorrow and after tomorrow were asynchronous days. But off of Dr. Grudy's point, we don't know if we'll be going back second semester because it's still, that's the middle of winter. January that's after New Year's, that's after New Year's parties, that's after Christmas celebrations. That's after college kids still being at home and still going out. We do have, like what Kayla's saying, a different political aspect. We have a different political plan that it will be put in place as of January 20th. So to say that we would go back second semester, I agree with Dr. Grudy. I think it's the same thing as false hope. So if we're going to give false hope either way, I would just say like, you put a day, but like either way, there could be disruptions on either end. And that's for like my main concern is the teachers is having them having their days planned out, but then it just becomes completely disrupted again. And I feel so bad for them, but I don't think we can avoid that at all.
Yeah, like I totally agree. Like we cannot keep on setting a date and then changing it. Like Kevin said, like we can't do that. So the numbers are just going to go up. So I feel like what we need to do is that we need to look at, obviously each day we're looking at the data and stuff like that. But I don't think we can set a date until we know that this is going to be combated and we have a plan. We do not have a plan. Our government does not have a plan. Our state does not have a plan. Our community does not have a plan. So there's nothing we can do. So someone needs to figure out a plan after January 20th, and we need to figure out what to do. So we can't do anything until then. And the fact of the matter is, I'd rather go back to school second semester than go to school 1 week and 1 day and then come back, because it's just hard for kids and it's confusing as well. So thank you for asking for my opinion. And also, you guys are doing a great job of that email that you sent about flu shots. That's a great point. You should keep on doing that. So thank you.
Okay. Great comments, you guys. Anything else? All right. I think we move ahead as Prentice outlined. It's not a sure thing. We'll try not to make decisions the night before things are supposed to change. Let's hope we start to see a downward trajectory if everyone in the community kind of helps us mitigate the spread here. I want to continue to push to get open as soon as possible, and let's hope the metrics get better here for us. All right.
And if that's the case, can we get together that week before Thanksgiving then and look at data again?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll set some up. It'll probably be relatively brief, and I'll send up an update every week between now and then.
So I'll set the meeting up. We're going to meet Monday or Tuesday, whatever works for you guys. I'll send you out a little thing.
Let's meet Tuesday, because Lake County doesn't usually update the website till night around 5:30.
That's true, Pat.
Although I think we have access to that data in different ways. It's nice to at least get their official information whenever we can.
So Tuesday before, just let me ask the question while we're here. And again, if you check your schedule later and it's different, we'll work around that. Is everyone available that Tuesday? That would be the Tuesday before Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes.
Are we good? Okay, Pat's good. Casey's not.
Nope. Sorry, my son and granddaughter come in that day, and
Casey, Monday? Then Monday would be better.
If Monday's better, we can do Monday.
Monday is better. Then Monday would work, Casey.
yeah, I could do Monday. They come in Tuesday night, so I'm
That's fine.
not going to be
We'll do the
available.
best we can to get whatever data we can. Then that's fine.
Okay, so everybody else okay on Monday? Thumbs up if you're good on Monday.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we may know more trending one way or the other before that anyway. I mean, if things start to flatten out, that's one thing. If I think we'll.
Oh yeah. Well,
can I just ask that we ask the community, parents, teachers, students to join us in watching all this, so that it's not really a surprise. To be watchful, to understand what it is we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to get people back, but watch what we're watching. And so it won't be such a big jolt to say, oh gosh, you told us a date and now we're not doing it. Well, it should be fairly clear to us, I think, if things are continuing to, especially if things are still going up. I mean, that's probably not going to happen. So if we all kind of join together and have some of that awareness, in addition to watching for what our discussions are and getting the real great data from Pat, maybe that helps us all sort of get along this waiting, stopping. I mean, obviously we're not going to all agree on exactly what the data means, but to some extent, if we're seeing dramatic things, we're going to know.
Yeah. Karen, one of the challenges, there are a number of people in the community that quite frankly don't believe the data. And in their defense, I mean, Illinois has continued to move the goalpost here a little bit in the way they've, started counting antigen testing, now counting probable cases and things like that. So, there's an argument to be made there. But again, if you look at 3 points, cases are going up, positivity rates going up, hospitalizations are going up. So there may be some tweaking in absolute numbers here, but I don't think you can argue the trend that things are getting worse. Okay. But I know there's a lot of pushback in the community about the data and what we're doing. So, okay. All right. Good discussion. Look forward to sending out more data. Let's just hope this thing turns around here. But I really, really, really appreciate the comments of both you, Amal, and Kayla. That is just so incredibly helpful to us.
Pat, two questions. Did everybody have a chance to weigh in on that recommendation? Are we good? Just in terms of affirming it. Again, you don't have to vote. Anybody else want to say anything? Okay. The second question is, it's 9:16 p.m. We're not going to be able to ask people to pivot because they had no idea this was coming. So what we want to do is we'd like to do teacher directed asynchronous day tomorrow. There's just no, it's not fair to make that pivot at 9:20 in the evening.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I would like the board to strongly consider us moving forward tomorrow with an asynchronous day. A lot of our students might even be, they may sleep late in the morning. If we have a teacher all of a sudden have to plan a lesson tonight and then shift tomorrow, first of all, we've got to notify our entire staff. Then we've got to notify our entire parent community and our student community. And at 9:15 at night, even I don't know if people would be checking these communications. So I think we need to allow our staff and our students to be prepared for the day that they were planning for tomorrow. We can shift all communication then throughout the day to prepare for the rest of the week. But as a building principal, I would strongly recommend staying with tomorrow being asynchronous.
Absolutely,
Agreed.
Tom. I mean, I kind of assumed that that's what it would be. How would we possibly get that message out at this point? It's all part of being flexible and just rolling with this as we can. And, I appreciate everything the teachers have done to roll with it and step up and be there for the students. And, like I said, be flexible in this situation. So absolutely.
So the only thing I want to highlight, though, is there's an increasing level of feedback that the asynchronous days are not working. I don't know if it's a vocal minority or a broader majority, but if you guys could just kind of keep your eyes and ears in the buildings and see what's going on there. I mean, I hear stories of kids on Netflix all day during the asynchronous day and other things like that. So I do think that's something we got to keep an eye on. All right. But I certainly understand we can't pivot at 9:20 at night.
Yeah, Pat, just to respond to that, that is something that we even spoke today about in our staff meeting. And remember that asynchronous days are not the norm. Teacher directed days are the norm. And I think more and more teachers are using teacher directed days to have synchronous events. These asynchronous days are not normal. They don't happen very often anymore. And I would even say if we're concerned about the rest of the week, then maybe we pivot back to hybrid on Wednesday and we do really what we were planning to do that week after Thanksgiving. And that would be, we'd have 8 days starting Wednesday through next week. We don't have to maybe do a teacher directed Wednesday. And we could do eight hybrid days, or 8 orange blue days, which would get us 4 full cycles in.
Well, yeah, I think that's what we were talking about for sure. So if we do asynchronous tomorrow or teacher, then we just roll through 8 days so we have a balanced
Yeah, I don't think you're going to.
Honestly, I'm comfortable with you guys dealing with that in the buildings. I'm just trying to raise the issue that, frankly, what I'm beginning to hear more and more about is Wednesday's still not working right.
Yeah, I mean, from my opinion, tomorrow was going to be an asynchronous day anyway. So I think by moving ahead with what was planned is going to be far more effective than any synchronous day when only half the kids know about it at, until mid morning or,
Tomorrow has to go as planned
Yeah.
at this point. Okay.
Prentice, I also think, and I don't know if we need to discuss this here or not as things are changing, but
is it a board topic, Tom, or is this an administrative team topic?
Well, it's the implementation of our hybrid schedule on Thursday.
Okay.
We probably want to implement that schedule on Thursday because teacher lesson planning is important and that happens, but there is so many other plans and logistics and operational planning that occurs. We've been altering, like, for example, IEP meetings, 504 meeting times, all kinds of things starting Thursday for our new hybrid schedule. So I think we would want to still implement that on Thursday. It keeps the orange blue days, and all it does is it alters the time a little bit, but that would enable us to continue with some of the planning that has been happening, that rather than have to redo all of that to go back to the e-school calendar. Because remember,
Tom is, and again, this is probably an administrative discussion, so I'm going to do this very quickly, and we need to move off of this because this is really not a board discussion.
Understood.
Tom, is that going to be too confusing to people? Right? Okay, we're going back to remote, but we're going to use our hybrid schedule to do it.
Prentice, we had a plan to transition to that schedule on Thursday anyway, and everyone's planning accordingly. So that could be included in the communication that Mary and I shared tonight announcing this.
Okay.
And we would include the schedule and very clear language about that shift.
Okay, so before we do that, let's make sure, Rita, you want to review that just quickly with the board when we talk about that? I want to make sure the board understands in what we'll be doing Thursday.
So what we were talking about is had we started with hybrid on Thursday, there was a slight shift in the schedule for the time of each period. So we would be shifting to that new time schedule on Thursday as planned, despite the fact that we're remaining in e-school. So.
Kevin, go ahead.
That was a relatively minor change, if I recall. Okay.
Yeah. So Kevin, what were you going to say?
No, that go back to what the kids know. They need certainty. They know what they're currently operating in remote. Fine with tomorrow. John came up with a reasonable solution, kick back in starting Wednesday in a remote schedule that they know we get 8 full days in. I don't see why. I mean, again, we're focusing now on, well, the staff is prepared. Let's focus on what the kids are ready. The kids know remote. You just took away something from them. Give them back at least something they know. Now you're going to say, well, let's start Thursday with a different hour. Doesn't make sense to me.
But let me I want to just make sure I understand it. Can you show that again, Brian?
I believe John's suggestion was to make that shift on Thursday to the schedule as planned, but to begin to
I thought he said Wednesday.
Days.
No, I thought John said Wednesday. John?
Yes, to make the shift on, I'm sorry, Kevin, I spoke incorrectly. Yes, on Wednesday. To make that shift on Wednesday to the schedule that we had planned, so that then we would begin alternating orange and blue days through the next week. But he didn't reference the schedule time. That's something that we had discussed previously as something that we all thought would be a good idea to move to the hybrid schedule as planned, like Tom recommended, based on other things that students were counting on that time change and teachers had planned for that time change in the schedule. So that was our recommendation. John's recommendation was to skip the teacher directed Wednesday, both this week and next week.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And
I think
then it stays that way. It stays that hybrid schedule forever now. whether
Yeah.
we're remote or hybrid.
So I think
that shift was planned.
That
think
shift was
I
planned,
think that-
and it was planned to remain that way, whether we would ever have to shift back to e-school from this point forward. So we're making the shift when it was planned to be made, and we would keep that schedule in for the remainder of the year, whether we are in e-school or in a hybrid mode.
And Rita, just summarize for us, what's the impact on the kids, actually?
Frank, you want to show that? You have the schedule up. Pat had asked to bring that up again. So this addresses longer passing periods between classes, which we had heard from students that they would prefer. So the impact is that the periods start, so period 1 begins at 8:25, so that's a shift. The periods are a bit longer, but there are also longer passing periods in between the periods to accommodate shifts from one class to another. So it alters slightly the start of the day, not the end of the day. It lengthens the periods a bit, and it increases the passing periods between classes.
But from the standpoint of the number of periods that meet in a day and which periods meet in a day, that hasn't changed, has it?
No changes to
Okay,
that.
that's really what I wanted to emphasize. It's really a tweaking of the start and stop times.
Stop time remains the same.
And it addresses one of the concerns, which is the time in between classes has actually been a little bit too short, is what we've heard.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. And while it's good to communicate this and get this out so we all understand it, I sort of agree with Prentice that this is really more of an administrative thing. The board doesn't have to take action on this. There's not much for us to do. So we appreciate the update, though.
All right. Okay. Now, are there any other questions about how we're proceeding? Because I want to make sure that the 7 of you understand the recommendation that you've concurred with or affirmed tonight, and then how we're going to proceed. Are there any other questions from you? Because what's going to happen behind this is I'm going to ask Rita and Mary to peel off, start doing some of the initial communication. When our meeting ends, then I'll peel off and join them for whatever else needs to be done. So we good at this point?
Yeah. Again, I don't know if we're good or not, Prentice. I guess again, I'm confused. I understand we're not going. The kids aren't going back. So I will tell the people who got their IDs today just to save them. We'll tell the freshmen who walked the buildings today to relax, right? Because they did. So we understand that. I think we're all good there. Are we changing? I understand we're doing over the next 2 weeks, we're going to do 8, let's just call it block days for the lack of. So I think I'm good there. I'm good, at least I think that's what I understand. 8 block days. I am concerned on now we're telling the kids instead of starting the classes for their usual block days on remote at 9, they're going to start at what time? 8:25. They're going to get an hour and 30 minutes for lunch to go get in trouble because of office hours and lunch under the new schedule, I think is what I saw. I think if you pulled it back up. So I guess what
do you want to do?
Am I supposed to tell my kid?
But Kevin,
no, I'm asking, what do I tell my kids on Wednesday morning? What time do they get up at?
But Kevin, that's the schedule we've been taught. If we went to hybrid, that's the schedule that we would be using. I mean, that's the schedule we've been talking about for 4 weeks.
But we're not going to. The issue is we're not going to hybrid. So go back to what they know, right? I mean, again, now you're giving them 3 schedules: the remote opening, the remote with the hybrid times, and then hybrid if we ever go back. And then we can pivot to remote. I agree, that's fine. But you're introducing uncertainty into an already chaotic environment. That's all I'm saying. But I agree with the Prentice. You, Tom, John, Mary, Rita, you handle it. We shouldn't have even talked about it, all right? Because once you talked about it and introduced it, now you're getting 19 different opinions, one of which is mine being vocal. And that's not really fair, and we have a lot of other business, including the tax levy, to get to.
Yeah, but Kevin, we should have talked about it because as soon as you got one note from a resident that said, how come you changed my kid's schedule, you'd be asking these guys why we did it. So we had the conversation tonight, so you'll be able to answer that question.
No, I think I just clearly said I won't be able to answer the question why we're introducing a new schedule when. It's because hybrid's supposed to start, but it didn't, right? That's what I'm answering.
So the good news is when we do pivot to hybrid, and I'm confident we still will, all we have to do is bring the kids in the building. They're already used to it. Right?
Yeah, this was an adjustment to the schedule, regardless of whether we're hybrid or whether we're in e-school. It was going to be the new schedule, so it would be consistent if we had to pivot either way. So I think it's a one-time change, and for the duration until we're all back 100% in the building, I think this will be pretty much our, you know, our method from now on. It's nothing that the board needs to act on. So I think we,
Okay, all right, let's move on.
As long as you know what it is. Okay, so that's the point. Okay. All right. Okay, Mary and Rita, we're gonna let you two go.
And Mom and Kayla too.
Yes, if you'd like to
Thanks,
go.
guys.
Unless you want to stay for the tax levy, that would be okay.
No, we got it. Thank you.
Thanks
All right.
for the invitation. Though.
Pat, do you want to
Thank
do
you.
Pat? You
The
want to
best part of the meeting.
Pat, you want to do a quick update on diagnostic testing?
So real quick, one, we did receive a proposal from the one vendor we've been speaking to, so we're reviewing that. That proposal would include, it's a test from Yale University. Essentially, it mirrors the U of I saliva test that we would use for testing faculty and staff and screen them on an ongoing basis. So we're reviewing that. I don't know whether that's a direction we'll want to go or not, but we have the proposal, we're reviewing it. The other news I will share, though, is Lake County today finally came out with what it takes to access the rapid Abbott test. All right, so we're rolling that into the discussions with the vendor that we've been talking to see whether that's feasible also. In any event, nothing would be feasible before the beginning of the second semester. But things are continuing to progress. It was a big breakthrough today, at least to get the 6-page document from the Lake County guys on how to access the Abbott test. So bottom line is you need to be a qualified person to run the test and do all that kind of stuff. So that's why we want to look for an outside source that could do that. Okay, so we're getting closer and closer, at least having a proposal there. Stay tuned. Okay.
Okay, Pat, and then health and safety, we've gone over several times and we've talked tonight. The buildings are ready when the students do come back. So transportation, now Dan mentioned today that, of course, we've got transportation lined up and ready to go for Thursday, 4 times, you know, bringing the kids in the morning, dropping, picking them up when they leave in the morning, bringing them in for their afternoon, taking them home for their afternoon. So that'll be on hold for right now. Dan, do you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, you know, we had the thing in the spring where, you know, we were pandemic and everyone was trying to survive. But this fall, we've really been careful to pay for services when we get them. They have been asking for us to offset, but I kind of ran numbers and did the math. Like if we were running these 4 tiers based on the per route we pay, that, you know, they'll be fine if we end up, you know, 103 days doing that 96 routes a day. But now with this changing, that's a little bit different depending on when we go back. So I guess what I'm saying is we need to think about our transportation company. Also, you know, before when we've made decisions to delay, it's usually been a few weeks ahead of time. And so I've been able to let them know and they've been able to adjust to that. But I don't know what they've already done in terms of getting drivers ready to go for Thursday, you know, because that's in really 2 business days. So they might already have drivers kind of keyed up and they could be, you know what I mean? Like they're an employer that they have to figure that out. So I will have to figure out something to do with transportation. I'm going to contact them as soon as possible. But we're going to have to figure something out with transportation. So that's really my point.
Okay. ESP, we've got several ESP staff that we talked about at the committee meeting, tracking COVID-19. Dan will continue to track those expenditures as we move forward. Report out, particularly at committee meetings, anything that we want to report out, of course, we can do here. Excuse me, dry throat. And I think that's, Pat, just to finish up my part of the report here, we had 1 FOIA request since last month. The FOIA request was received on 11/5/2020. The deadline response was 11/12/2020. Requester was Jairo Gomez, Research Analyst, Chicagoland Laborers District Council, at lgomez@ldclmcc.com. Information requested: bid results as read from the bid opening on 11/5/2020 at 10 a.m. for the demolition of structures bid. Follow-up was done by Dan Stanley, and the request was fulfilled, and the response was sent on 11/6/2020. And Pat, that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, thanks. All right, the consent vote agenda is listed. We reviewed it last week in our committee meeting. Can I ask for a motion to approve the consent vote agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
You're muted, Carol.
Sorry about that. Carmichael,
Aye.
Rudy,
Aye.
Hessel,
Aye.
Huber,
Aye.
Lundstedt,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson. Sorry.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion carries. Program and personnel, Chairperson Batson.
You got to hit my unmute. Okay. Hang on just a second. So the question here, our first agenda item is ESP recalls. And in light of our change, do we change this?
No.
Move forward.
Brian, go ahead.
So if you look back at the consent agenda, we had already recalled some of our support staff back and, started today, basically tomorrow. The next group we had put on for the agenda for today to start on Wednesday to prepare for the students coming in on Thursday. So you can see those are mostly 11/11. We do also, those are all recalls. So item I, and then items 2 and 3 were a little different. II is a replacement for someone. And then we have a certified nurse's assistant for both buildings. And she would be starting on 11/16 to help with a lot of our nurses. So the question is, for all of the hires for 11/11, they were, scheduled for Thursday or Wednesday, with the expectation that students were coming in Thursday.
So Brian, what do you recommend here? I mean, obviously we're not going to have students in the building, but the one thing I want to guard again, I want to be ready when we're ready. That's all.
Mm-hmm. We can delay, when we bring them back. I struggle with, we've, asked people to come back on the 11th, and then we're delaying it and yo-yoing, originally we had talked about coming back in October, had started talking to people, and then we're talking about November, and they're, planning to come back, and now we're delaying it again. I can make a recommendation to delay it, or we can, bring them in and we will, find work. And
I'd like to suggest delaying their start date, please.
What do the rest of you think?
Tom and John, do you and whoever else, now that we're this far into the remote, are there gaps that teachers would find having assistance helpful, so that not only can we be increasing meeting the needs of our kids because we have extra help for however many weeks? Is that because it just feels like we're messing with people? I mean, I know it's beyond our control, but you can't just keep hiring people and then saying, oh, sorry, no, But obviously you need people to be doing important work
with the students if possible. But I know, maybe that's an impossible question for you 2 days before,
I think,
or a day before it
that's a
starts, but.
Karen, it's a good question. I think many of the staff that we're talking about are necessarily classroom aides, like you're referring to. However, so I would understand the desire, the need to push back. However, if we were to move forward with bringing those ESPN, we would find those kinds of student engagement, student follow-up, students who are performing under standards to try to connect adults to kids in that way. It's not necessarily their current job description, but I would think it would be important for us to find meaningful work for them to do. And that has to be connecting with kids, whether that's working alongside teachers or us finding other interventions for those staff members, many of whom I'm sure would be more than willing to do that. But that's my response, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would have said as well.
So it sounds like both of you guys are recommending to proceed. Is that what I'm hearing?
John and Tom?
I mean, I just, as John said, the people we're bringing back were designed to come back mostly to fill supervision spots for us. I just definitely would, I would be able to proceed in eSchool without this group of people right now because we don't have the students in the building. If they're back, I would be working with my teams. I couldn't tell you exactly what they'd be doing right now, but we would be working with our teams to put them in position to support our students. And as we've heard, we've got a lot of student needs that we're all kind of concerned about. So it's a difficult position for me because I can't tell you exactly what it would be at this moment, other than a commitment to make sure that everybody that we've got in our building is working to support students.
Are these hourly employees?
Yes.
So if we bring them back and we can only use them part-time, can we control their hours?
We can.
They were coming back part-time to begin with, I believe, correct, Brian? 32 hours.
Correct. They were coming back part-time, about 32 hours, and we can, bring them back on a limited basis and then increase it. Then, we're looking at November 30th, that Monday, that's the week that, we're looking at possibly, trying to come back into school.
I mean, my preference would be to increase it as we need to, but I mean, as I said, I want to be ready when we're ready. And this allows us to at least have the infrastructure in place whenever we do pivot, correct?
That's true, Pat. That would be true. Whenever we do pivot, we would have the people in place. We wouldn't be subject to maybe people not being available, to come back when we're ready for them to come back.
Even to hire them, we got to approve that, which means it's either got to be at a board meeting or a special meeting, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So the next board meeting's not until
December 7th.
Right.
Yeah, we could start them contingent upon board approval, like, we hire teachers in the summer, but the best way to do that is to try and line it up, of course.
So again, we could agree to hire these people and put it to the building's discretion with respect to how many hours these people
Yes.
actually work.
Yes.
Right.
And then Tom and John would report out to us and let us know what that is. And they're very, as you already know, I mean, I'll just say this for the record, because some people are watching and may not know, John and Tom are very good at working with us, on personnel issues. So, and Pat, you've said, can we adjust their hours in the interim? Yes, we can. I mean, we've answered that question. They're all coming back. This group's coming back all no more than 32 hours, right? I think for all of them. So, we have the ability to adjust them, but we would have the infrastructure in place when we're ready to pivot.
We could look at, Pat. I mean, they were scheduled to come back in 2 days with the students coming in on, Thursday for hybrid. Now, obviously, we're making some changes to this week. If we look at November 16th as a start date, that would allow, I think, our buildings to put some pieces in place for them over the 16th that week, and then 2 days for Thanksgiving, and then we're ready, really ready, for students then coming back the hybrid model the week of the 30th.
Well, although what I'm thinking is I don't know that I would be even committing to that. I mean, like I said, I would want you guys to I'll call it scrutinize. I don't have a better word tonight, but I mean, manage their hours as we need to until we come back. If it's November 30th, it's November 30th. But if it's December 15th, it's December 15th. I mean, does that make sense? I mean,
so Pat, you're
basically
suggesting we keep the motion as it is?
I'm suggesting we approve to hire them, but the number of hours they work is managed by the buildings. And my guess is until they get back to school, it'd be less than 32 hours.
Okay.
But if you find great work for them to do that's going to help address our social and emotional needs of the kids, and by all means, I mean, we should do it. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I kind of go along with Lisa. I don't think if I was paying for this out of my own pocket, which I guess I am as a taxpayer, I don't see how we can say, kids, you can't come back, but we're going to hire these people just to be ready. We just basically had a long discussion. And again, I respect Tom, and I heard him say, I don't think it's our job to tell the principals in the building to try to find these people work. That's my opinion. So that's, I think, because I think we have to be clear. At the P&P meeting, we already approved some other people joining, assuming that we were going to have kids back in school. So we already have that tranche at the building, right? If I remember right. And now these are new ones, like Bryant talked about. So now we have another layer. And I guess, again, as much as I hate to say it, it doesn't make sense to me to bring people on if kids aren't going to be there. So
even though it could accelerate our ability to pivot to remote or a hybrid, right?
I think these are not necessary. We have a monitor, a library aide, another aide, a monitor, a MASH aide, a monitor. These positions, again, there are people in the community, especially with restaurants being closed and things like that. We can fill these positions, in my opinion.
So
I'm not
okay. So the request was going to be for a motion to approve these people as recommended. Do you have an alternate motion we can vote on?
No, we don't need to make a motion at all. We just move on. It's an agenda item. We don't, if there's no motion, doesn't say we have to make a motion.
Well, we do have some replacements here on the same.
Well, I would break it apart. If you're not going to move ahead with voting any of them, though, I would pull out though number 3, the ESP new hire for our certified nurses assistant. So that's a position that we need right now. We need right now.
Yep.
And we are we're the soonest we could get that person in place is the 16th, but whether we're remote or hybrid, we need that person. We need, we're doing a lot of work with, staff and students, and we need that person.
Be in favor of that.
Let me pose it this way. Is there anyone that wants to make, we're going to split item 3 out. Is there anyone that wants to make a motion for item 1 and 2? Okay. Hearing none. Then can we get a motion for support staff new hire under item A, Roman numeral 3?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on that particular one? Okay, Carol, can we have a roll call, please?
Grudy.
Aye.
Hessel.
Aye.
Huber.
Aye.
Lundstedt. Aye. Rooney.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Carmichael.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Pat, we have IASB resolutions here because we did discuss it in the P&P. Do you want it here, or do we do this during the IASB?
Let's do it here.
Let's just do it.
Okay. And let's keep it as brief as possible.
Yeah. Let's get through this pretty quickly. I do have a little bit of additional information. I attended the meeting Thursday night, and we've gotten some more comments, of course, from the public. Just a bit of a clarification. So in the resolutions, the first 8 resolutions listed are all included in a consent vote, assuming that the committee agrees to adopt them. If they suggest that they don't get adopted, they are not included unless the author of that resolution appeals to the committee to get it discussed. So in which case, there are two items out of that consent vote, out of those new resolutions that will be up for discussion. And that is the resolution number 2, which we've heard a lot about, the gun storage resolution. And then another one that was actually mistitled. It's called pre-K teacher licensure. Actually, it's pre-service or pre. It's supposed to be a student teacher licensure discussion. They've adjusted some wording on that and will be, moving forward with a discussion and a vote on that. So how these work when you pull them out like that, after the committee's recommended that they do not adopt, it happens in 2 parts. The first part is the overall group has to vote to bring it back to the table, basically. They have to vote to be able to vote on it. So the initial vote will be, do we want to discuss and vote for or against this resolution, because it was already rejected by the committee. So both of those resolutions will come up for that initial vote to see whether we move forward, and then the subsequent vote will be a yay or nay towards the resolution. So does that make sense? Okay. That was something that I recalled, but I don't think I had commented on last time and made clear. There's really, there was some additional conversation Thursday night on the topic. Nothing that we didn't already hash through last week during our committee meeting. The comments ranged from people very much in support of the resolution, that they feel that this is something that the school board association should be supporting, all the way to a number of people talking about this as gun control types of things, Second Amendment types of concerns. So that it ran the gamut, and you can imagine, that there was a lot of. Illinois is a pretty diverse state, and I mean that in many ways. And there are a lot of rural areas where this would hit home very differently than the urban areas. That being said, the commentary was pretty mixed. So, we'll be taking a vote on whether to take a vote on that this coming Saturday. I will note that we, and I believe, Don, you had mentioned this, House Bill 2254 is a bill that's going through, and I believe it may have been, I'm trying to clarify exactly where that is, but it's the bill that is basically mirrors what this is talking about, with the exception that it has the 14-year-old age limit instead of the 18-year-old age limit. And what the resolution is suggesting is they move the age limit for young people that could possibly gain access to the guns to 18 instead of 14. So this is something, and it's fairly new. It had just gone through the House in July. I'm actually reaching out to somebody to find out a little more information on that. One of the co-sponsors of that bill. So hopefully I might be able to get some additional feedback on that particular bill. But, regardless of where you come down on this, we all want our kids to be safe. We all want, we want to prevent suicides. We want to prevent school shootings as much as we can. I would encourage people out there that are very interested in this topic to go file a witness slip, that get involved directly with the legislation, not through a third party. And I'll also make one comment. Any of these resolutions that we wind up voting for at the Illinois Association of School Boards, and I think Prentice made this clear last week, we have no jurisdiction over any of this. This is just a recommendation for us to support.
Yeah.
The legislators have to make laws. We don't make laws. The School Board Association certainly doesn't make laws. So what this is it just a recommendation to our association for those types of programs and policies and laws that they are going to advocate for in Springfield and in the various regional, local, and state governments, and even in some cases at the federal level. So,
And Jim,
I'm a little,
ahead,
can I
Lisa.
just ask for clarification? So are you saying that there is no law right now saying that if you're 14 or under, the household has to have it?
I believe that has passed, and that has gone through the system. I'm just trying to find.
So there's a new piece of legislation that's being proposed that would raise it?
I could not find any legislation that was proposed to change that. I've looked, but I have not found it yet. So I'm reaching out to one of the co-sponsors to try to see if I can get some additional information on this law that seems to have been put into a place in July, and that was the 14 and under law for this.
So that's new. Okay.
It's fairly new. Yeah.
So just remember, like any advocacy group, what IASB is going to do after all this is processed, if they have 35 resolutions, they're going to crunch that down to 3 or 4 or 5, and that's what they're going to push in their legislative agenda, at the end of the day. So what they're doing is they're basically seeking feedback on many things, and then they're going to continue to process those many things, and they will squeeze that list down. Kevin's very familiar with this because of his work that he does in Springfield. They're going to squeeze that list down to what they think is their 3 or 4 top priorities. And that's where of that list, everything on the list, and that's what that'll be their legislative agenda after it's all said and done, because they can't push 35 things as their agenda. They don't have the time, they don't have the money, and they don't have the resources. And they also will not have the attention of the legislators on 35 issues, I think, as Kevin would agree, for sure. So
I just wanted to make it clear that there's multiple hurdles. This one has to, even for the resolution, there's two votes that it has to pass for this resolution to even get on the agenda for the IASB. And then, as Prentice says, it's just one part of their agenda. So I want to set realistic expectations that just because we vote and a lot of people vote yes on this or try to vote yes on this, because we might not even get that opportunity, that doesn't in any way create a law, create a bill, create none of that. It's just giving permission or giving a direction to the association to advocate for that. So I just want to be clear that that's the process. There's regardless of how you come down there. So it's and at the risk of asking this was the one that we seem to have the biggest concern with. I know we sort of took a straw poll the other day. Do we need to do that again? Is there without getting into lengthy discussion again here?
Yeah, I will reiterate my comments. I still think it's worth advocating for. I'd like to see us vote yes for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important to pull it out and discuss it, hopefully get it to a place where it can be voted on, and that we would be behind it.
And Jim, I recognize that this is challenging. There's a finite bucket of capital that IASB has, and this is a real hot button issue. I think that our public and our district has made it clear that they support this. And, with all the conversations we're having about concern about kids' mental health and emotional health, I can't help but support advocating for this. And I understand the realities of what that really means. It's kind of there's not a lot of power behind it. I understand that, but I just feel as a parent and as a school board member that I have to support that.
Anybody else want to comment?
No,
I think I know what I have, and hopefully we'll even get a chance to make that vote. So we'll see how that goes. I will let everyone know once that's completed, so that we don't have to wait till next month for you to hear what the result is. But that'll be
And just Jim, thank you so much for all you're doing on this, for how you're digging in and communicating so well with us and helping us to understand it. And just really, really appreciate your work.
Ditto.
Okay.
Greatly appreciated.
So that, anything other for PNP? Okay, that concludes the Program and Personnel Committee. I turn it back over to Dr. Rudy.
Thanks, Jim. All right, Facilities and Finance, Chairperson Huber. Kevin, you're on mute.
Thank you, Pat. Dan, you want to go over the levy, please?
Yes.
As a reminder, this is our fourth bite at the apple. So we spent a lot of time on this, a lot of education. So I think tonight's really the purpose tonight is to approve. Yes.
Yes, sir. So do you see did everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So 2020 levy. So just as a reminder, this is the fourth meeting we've had talking exactly about this particular levy with these particular numbers. We did over the summer. Levy is part of the budget planning that we go through, but the last four meetings, including tonight, we've had discussion about this. A brief reminder that our levy is largely based on CPI, which is Consumer Price Index, and the percentage change of which is essentially the rate of inflation that we are restricted by. And so you can see 2.3% is the number for 2020. This is lagged, so it's a year behind in data. So the 2021 number is likely going to be a fair amount lower than that. Our history for a property tax extension, again, we've shown this before. It's had some ups and downs over the years. Some of that is because of, tax levy decisions by the board at that time. Some of it has to do with debt payment and structure, but the last few years you can see is pretty consistent there. We had this on a presentation before that in 2014, there was a decision by the board to lower the tax levy. And so that was lowered by, you can see that over 2 million to call it 2.3 million in 2014. And then because of the way the math works and the law and the formula works, $1 million of that, about 1.1 million, carries over and increases with inflation each year in perpetuity. And so that continues to be there. So that's already a built-in, I guess, savings that's already there based on actions. So just trying to show and highlight a lot of the property tax system that we are under, a one-time decision has long-term ramifications both ways. Unfortunately, we don't have the flexibility really to make a temporary decision for 1 year and then kind of go back. You don't have that flexibility under the law. Here's a history of our EAV, which is our equalized assessed value. This is what we would call our tax base in the district. It had definitely had its dips in the recession time, but since then has recovered a lot. And next year, the projection is for our EAV to be flat. So that's built into our estimations. And then new properties. So this is the value of new properties coming on. This could be companies, but most likely it's usually people doing renovations to their houses. That's usually the biggest part of new property. So they're doing an addition or renovating something. And so that's been averaged around 14 million. And that's the estimate that we're working under based on data from the county. And so we have a formula that calculates what I'm anticipating our extension is going to be is 82.3 million. That's the 2.3 CPI that I talked about plus 0.46. That's 14 million. That's the 14 million. And for a total increase of 2.76. Now, what this means is that for existing properties, your average increase will be 2.3% relative to the change in assessment. So meaning, if you remember, I said EAVs being flat, being zero, if your individual property assessment changed by 0%, then your taxes would go up. The portion for District 128 would go up 2.3%. If your assessment from between this year and last year went down, your taxes would go up by less than 2.3, or they could be flat or down depending on how much your assessment changed. If your assessment changed by more than 0, so if it went up, your taxes would go up by more than the 2.3%. So it's just 2.3% spread out over the whole. And then really there's a lot of numbers here, but if you just think the first column is what our extension was, that was the money we were approved to get last year. The middle column is what I'm estimating we're actually going to get. And then the final column is actually what we are levying, those dollars and those funds. So 82.776306 million, or $82,776,306, excuse me, would be our levy. That is a 3.1% increase over last year. However, I think we're actually only going to get 2.76%. And that leaves us a cushion of just under 300,000. And, normally I think because we've been doing this pretty closely the last few years, in a normal year, I'd probably suggest a closer number to the 2.76. But again, with the pandemic and I think the increased likelihood of people challenging their assessments is much higher this year than I've seen in previous years. So I feel more comfortable with that 3.1. And that's really, that's the information I have for you. So a little bit brief, but we've been talking about this a fair amount, and the documents are, in your packet as well. So that's what I got.
Good overview. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. I think we are probably looking for a motion to adopt the certificate of 2020 tax levy and accompanying resolutions as presented.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Casey. We have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, other comments talking about it? Dan, you did a great job. Thank you for doing this. I know it's never easy. So thank you. Any comments? All right, Carol, you want to call
Dan,
it?
as always, for your hard work.
My pleasure. My pleasure. There's a lot of important things you do. I would strongly argue, not just because I'm a finance guy, this is securing the largest source of revenue for the district. So this helps us literally do the things that we're all talking about doing. So this is a very important decision.
You do an amazing job of explaining it so that hopefully the public can understand it, and we can understand it as well, and everyone can kind of wrap their arms around it. Something this important, and I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. It's kind.
All right, Carol.
Hessel.
Aye.
Huber.
Aye.
Lundstedt.
Aye.
Rooney.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Carmichael.
Aye.
Grudy.
Aye. Good. All right. So now we get to talk about getting rid of 933 West Park Avenue. Finally, Dan, you're
Mark.
you're not teasing us, are you?
That was a goal before I retired, Kevin. Take that building down, right?
Oh my gosh, Dan, you're not teasing us here, all right? You're not gonna.
We're not teasing.
All right.
Things sound simple to say, just take down a house. It's not always that simple.
Yeah.
So we want to be careful and do things properly. So Mark has coordinated for us to do exactly that. I'll turn it over to Mark for the details.
Okay, thank you, Dan. We had 3 contractors show up for our pre-bid meeting. We received 3 bids. So looking for, the administration is looking to recommend that the board approve a bid from Fowler Enterprises, LLC, out of Elgin, Illinois, in the amount of $34,650.
And Mark, that has a contingency in there of how much?
It has a contingency in it for $15,000.
Okay, so, if by some miracle we don't incur that,
Then we would be,
we probably will, just, that's kind of how it works, but we could get 15,000 back if we're done, and no other bad unforeseen circumstances.
Okay, Questions of Mark and Dan on the removal of 933 Park Avenue?
Yes, when's it coming down?
Well, we have to get a permit from the village. So once you approve it, I can move forward with the permit of the village. And we're filing for the abatement. That's a couple week process, get that permit. So it's all coming together. The power's already been shut off to the building. They cut the power last week. And I put in a couple months ago to have the gas line, but that takes an IDOT permit. So all the
So
all the parts are coming together.
realistically, what do you think?
Sometime December, realistically.
Thank you.
Other questions of Mark and Dan? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the bid from Fowler Enterprises to remove 933 West Park Avenue in the amount of $34,650.
So moved.
Thanks, Karen. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Tom. Other comments? All right, Carol.
Huber,
Yes.
Lundstedt,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Grudy,
Aye.
Hessel.
Aye.
All right, any other?
Do you want to have us bold that yes in the minutes, like a bold and underline? Yes.
Yes, please. All right, any other for facilities and finance? All right, back to Dr. Grudy. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. No IASB now, right, Jim?
Yeah, I got one more thing I was going to mention.
Okay.
So for those of you that the meeting I'm doing is this coming Saturday. That's normally at the same time as our III conference, the joint conference. That conference obviously isn't going on this year, but they are holding what they're calling a virtual summit. This is IASB by itself is holding a virtual summit. It's on Friday, November 20th, so a week from Friday, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's got two keynotes. It's got some other speakers. My favorite is the opening keynote is Baratunde Thurston, and if you haven't heard him or heard any of his stuff, interesting guy. He's talking on the how to deconstruct racism one headline at a time. He's a very funny man and very interesting to hear speak. I follow him on a couple things, so it might be something worth spending some time on that Friday watching. I think it's a relatively minimal cost, but Carol can probably still get some folks signed up for that if you care to join. So just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Is that in addition to what we've already, like if we've already signed up to go, can we go to that?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, no CEDAW. So can I have a motion to convene an executive session? Tonight's topic, employment of an employee. It's 5 ILCS 120/2C1.
Can I interject just one tiny foundation update?
Sure.
It'll only take 1 minute. Just want to be sure that everybody is aware. We can't have the big event this year. That is the District 128 Foundation for Learning's largest fundraising event. So that supports our Students in Need Fund as well as grants for teachers, innovation grants. In lieu of that, there's going to be a wind down for the holidays fundraiser on Friday, November 20th at 7:30. There's a link to make purchases tonight that are all wine and chocolate related that will support the foundation. Monetary donations will still be accepted after tonight, but if you want to bid, if you want to purchase any of the wine and chocolate packages that will support the Foundation for Learning, tonight is the night, and you can find that link on the D128 Foundation for Learning website that can be accessed from the D128 site.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lisa. It looks like a nice event, actually. Okay, is there a motion to convene executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right. Discussion. Roll call.
Lundstedt,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Grudy, Hessel,
Aye.
Huber.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, so we'll go to the closed session on the other Zoom link. And then again, Bryant, just to confirm, we'll come back on this link, correct? Okay. All right.